The Visualcast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, crystals, alien downloads, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out. But the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share with us. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. To support us, please like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and leave us a review on Spotify. Now, without any further ado, here's the Visualcast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Overall cool, calm and collected and positive human being that really is a nice person to be around, and I had the honor of meeting 2 years ago. Welcome to the podcast, Mikael Lindahl AKA Taolin.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey man, this is
that was a great pronunciation.
Yeah, Mikael Lindahl. I could be Swedish. I could be. You know, I'm white.
Definitely.
I have whiteness inside of me. What else do Swedish be? I like sausages and cold weather. I don't know.
That's about it.
It's about it. Well, cool. Let's get right into it. It's really nice to see you, dude. I'm really happy to have you on. It's been a long time. You've been a little bit hesitant coming on, and I'm happy that I pushed you to get on here because I think we can have a really awesome discussion, and you're a super fascinating and interesting guy, and a super talented artist as well. Okay, so I like to start off with a little bit of a scripted question, and then we'll get into it. From live painting to motion graphics, from high quality renders to live visuals, you are always taking things to the next level and really showcasing your skills and talent. From the moment we met at Modem, I knew you would be something special, and then to witness you blowing our minds in person was a super special treat for me. It also helps that you're such a nice, calm, collected, kind, and cool person. And as I said in the intro, someone that people just want to be around and get your vibe. Your 3D work is spectacular and on a high-end commercial level, and your personal art is truly psychedelic in the real meaning of the word and takes me on journeys into familiar and known places. So, to start things off, simply and directly, what was it like performing at Modem?
Wow, man. I was crazy nervous, but also super ready. And playing with Delta Process, you just know that you're gonna be covered on the times that you fuck up. They got your back for sure. Faye and Fede is just like showing me the way, and I try to dance along, take the lead now and then. Get the feel for it. It's just a crazy experience, working on that stage. And I think even I remember back in like 2 years ago, the first time I was also getting to play on the Swamp with Keith a couple of nights. He was letting me play with his setup from Fractal Visions.
Shout
which
out.
was, he was just also, yeah, definitely big shout out. He's been showing me the way and playing some of my content. So, yeah, man, what can you say? You just want to be there. You just want to experience it. There's nothing like it's like a psychedelic trip, It's hard to describe it. You just want to do it. You have to experience it.
Yeah. yeah, it's like it goes by super fast. At the beginning, you're like, oh, it's the first day. I'm a little bit nervous. This is gonna be a long festival. And then the last day, you're like, oh fuck, I didn't do 90% of the things that I wanted to do or experience, you know. And then you have to wait a whole
Let's
year.
go
But it's
another
like,
week.
yeah, it's go another week. But it's like it is like it's a magical place. The festival is so nice. I'm super honored to be invited back every year. Might take a year off this year. We'll see how things go. But yeah, I mean, it's just a special place, and you know, it's like it is like a psychedelic experience. Like the whole like set and setting, and like the you know the peak of the trip, and like the come down, and the like the coming up to it. Like you just get there and you're just like
Yeah.
in it. You know, it's like that hit, and you're just like, oh, let's go. And then it's like, oh, can I go any higher? And it's like, yeah, I can. Okay, now I'm coming
Yes,
down.
yes,
Yeah,
we
and that's
can.
like you said. That stage is just like it's what's the word in English? Sochef. It's like pulls you in, like sucks you in. You know, it's like whether you're performing or just enjoying the stage, it's like you're just in this really powerful flow. And like when you jump into it, even just from dancing on the dance floor, you're just like in another place, like just no drugs needed, just like you're just there. It's very, very crazy. So yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, I'm
And I
I'm
feel
I'm
like
really happy. You know, please.
yeah, no, I was like also getting invited by Faye and Fede. I just want to give them also shout outs because both these years that they keep inviting me, super grateful. Been on some smaller projects with them as well. They're fun to work with, you know, fun people, nice beings. So yeah. And it's like just hanging out with all of you guys when I was coming the first year. I was like, wow, these. I think you were saying it told me your artist name, and I was like, Ramesh, I recognize that. And like, going into my Instagram, I'm like, oh, of course, that's why I know you. I was like
Oh
already
yeah.
following all of you guys, and then it's like,
Hell yeah.
oh, then being invited
Yeah,
to that party.
it's the same. You know, I feel the same way with you. It was always like, you know, you kind of, you know, I'm very open to new people, and it's always kind of like I love, especially like young and upcoming people. It's always like very nice to kind of usher them in and kind of give them a helping hand and stuff like that. But sometimes, and I don't know, nobody specific is coming to my mind, but just sometimes, you know, people that are up and coming maybe are not on such a high level, or they're, and this is like a very normal thing, right? Because you're just starting out, or you're just kind of coming into it. There's like maybe like some hesitation, or there's maybe some lack of knowledge, or in worst cases lack of respect. But like with you, it was like, oh, you're like on such a high level already with your work, and you have such a high respect and regard of where you are and what you're doing. It was like a very natural kind of feeling. Obviously, like being pulled in by Fed and Faye is obviously a big help to that, you know. And also they were like, you know, they brought you in kind of as Delta Process, not as like, you know, as an artist that they're featuring, which is also like pretty impressive to say the least. So the fact that you were coming back was just like a really exciting thing, because it was just, I wanted to see what you were gonna do when you were just unleashed, you know? Because like you said, when you played with Keith, and the content you helped make for Delta Process was just like so fucking great, that I wanted to see you do it. So I'm you know, I'm really happy that, yeah. Shout out to Fed and Faye, love them too. You know, they're great artists and great people. So it's awesome that you got to experience that. So, my friend, growing up in Sweden, you know, I don't know. I don't know much about Sweden. Obviously, you know, it's kind of like synonymous with amazing lifestyle and the best quality of life and good weather, kind of good weather. It depends what you like about the weather. You know, just these kind of, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just like a very interesting part of the world. Like, what was it like growing up in Sweden, and kind of like, what is it like living there? You know, give us a little bit of a taste of what it's like.
Yeah, you know, it's I'm quite grateful to be from here because it is like there is all this kind of security and all these good things going on most of the time for most of the people. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
always cracks in every system.
Yeah.
which not to be like shunned away or anything. I think it should be openly talked about as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a very like calm childhood, I'd say. I grew up on the countryside, you know, in a like a, it wasn't a farm, but more in a farm area.
Mm.
But yeah, you know, the weather is good if you like the winter. If you like snow and cold and darkness, it's brilliant. And now I'm living in Gothenburg, which is called Little London because it's raining a lot. So
Mm.
um, all in all, I think it is a really cool country. The nature is amazing,
Mm.
especially if you go up north. Like you have these huge areas and like just vistas that you should experience. I haven't been myself to that many times to the north, but it is really beautiful. And uh, what else would I say about Sweden? You know, and I also have some roots from Finland. My mother is
Mm.
from Finland,
Oh, nice.
so you know that's the country of a thousand lakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's fairly holds up. You know, go for a road trip, you'll see a couple of lakes.
What was yeah, I
It's
mean
cool.
it's always hard to kind of like quantify like what it's like to live where you're living because it's like your everyday life. But like, your childhood, the schools that you went to, I'm always interested like what got you to where you are now as an artist, as somebody who's like a creative, did you get um inspired by somebody around you, by family members? Was it just kind of the system kind of like helped you and ushered you into this place? Obviously, you're naturally a person who's inclined to, this art. You draw beautifully and you have beautiful paintings. When was this kind of like starting in your life, and what kind of helped you, make it into something that you wanted to do as a career?
Yeah, I think it's funny, you know, because I didn't really have that much art in school. My
Mm.
grandma and my grandpa used to collect like local art
Oh,
from
cool.
the area that I'm from, and they had I remember now I can't. I'm the worst with names, but I can't remember the guy. But it's not famous, but he's like fairly like he used to live on his art. I think he's not alive anymore.
Mm.
But he had a pretty like almost psychedelic art,
Wow.
and that's like from my area.
Like
I'll send you
surrealistic
some
almost.
pictures. Yes, it was like nature inspired, but then he was always adding like this crazy architecture. The house looks kind of like not a Willy Wonka house, but you know, like
Okay.
they're definitely not like realistic.
You're right, right, right.
It definitely
He
has
was
more like a
doing
surrealistic
something in his head.
something. They say I think there's like the rumors were that he was an alcoholic, but I got different
Oh,
suspicions nowadays.
yeah.
Once you grow up, you're like, wait a minute, that was not alcohol.
For sure.
Um, I'll give you the name afterwards. Maybe it'll put in a picture in the in the edit.
Okay. I don't like to edit.
Um,
I don't like to edit.
right.
We're
Right.
going live unless we say like
Yeah.
something that we don't like, we can edit it. But yeah, I mean, if
Right. Right.
send me the pictures
So,
and maybe I'll add
sure,
it.
we'll see what we do. But otherwise, like when I was studying, I was not really into art that much, like making art that much,
Mm,
like until I got to like 13 or 14 years, maybe
mm,
15. I think that's when I like played a little bit with Photoshop and like I did some front cover for like a school paper,
mm-hmm.
stuff like that, like really basic.
Interesting.
I think that's when I was like getting a little curious about it. But before that, I wasn't really like painting or drawing more than any other kid.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh,
So you first got into
so
like
definitely,
digital, and then you went into like more painting and drawing?
yeah, yeah. And I didn't even know I
Interesting.
wanted to go into digital like before I went to upper secondary school. What do you call it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like
That's like when
like
we
high
in
school.
Sweden you get to pick like a media IT, or that's
Mm,
what I picked.
Interesting.
for focus.
Everybody
And then it's
has to
like,
pick a focus like that?
well, you can go like, it would be called like society or nature. That those are like more, physics, math,
Gotcha.
language.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then there's like IT media, or like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
arts. And there's more like specific to technology and to like carpentry as well.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, it's
So you
always
study
interesting
that, and
to.
you would get like a university. You would get a university, even if you're studying to be a carpenter. You will be able to study university, but you will also be knowing how to do carpentry, for example.
That's awesome. No, I mean that's like I love that like European
Mhm.
countries have that kind of like ideal thing of like you can get a trade or like a skill, but also you can go and become like a professional, whatever. I think it's really nice. Not a lot of
Definitely.
places. It's like a lot of places, at least where I grew up. It's like if you want to be a professional or have a skill, that's what you're gonna do throughout your line. Like if you study some science or whatever in high school, it's most likely you're gonna do that in college or whatever. And if you like learned a computer thing, then you're probably gonna do that in college as well. Which is kind of silly because like as a kid, you don't really know what you want to do. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so when did you start getting into drawing? I'm just gonna show some of your paintings here while we go through it. When did you start getting
All
into like
right.
into painting and drawing? I mean, it's like, you have such beautiful vistas and paintings. Like it's pretty impressive. And it kind of
Thanks, man.
obviously resembles some esoteric psychedelic landscape of some sort. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like, did you
Yeah.
train? Like, were you trained classically, or did you just kind of teach yourself? Excuse me.
Uh, I taught myself mostly. I mean, I've been looking online and YouTube. I find my way. But I think the first drawing was like 2015 or something like that.
Hmm.
That's when I like was on this theme that I'm on, that I
You have
have on my
such cool
website.
details.
But much like that's that one is the fastest one I've ever done, and it's like 3 months.
I mean, this is like crazy
Obviously, I'm not
details.
obviously I'm not working like 24/7, but
Yeah, but you're putting time into it. And was it like kind
that,
of natural for you to
that's an
just
early
start
one.
drawing? Like you just kind of you're like, okay, I kind of have these ideas and visions, like I just want to kind of put them on paper. Was that kind of like how it came to be?
I think the
Wow.
initial like thing that pushed me was definitely an acid trip, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, I gotta start drawing. I gotta get this out of my head.
Okay.
Not get it out of my head, but I
Put it on
wanna
paper.
yeah, to process
Interesting.
it. I think,
And
and
so
it was not the first trip like I ever did, but after that I was like, I got hooked on drawing, and then I went to Boom, and then I started painting
mm, at Boom,
basically. No, not at Boom, but after my first Boom, yeah.
that was like
And
okay, I
from
can do this as a thing.
yeah, no, like because I did the black and white drawings like for a long time, from 2015 to 2018, and then 2018 it was like, yeah, that's what I got going with the colors. Started playing with acrylics, started playing with my airbrush,
Mm,
just
amazing.
trying things.
So cool. And was
So
there any kind of like I know you kind of mentioned your grandparents collected art. Was there any other inspirations in your life, like people that pushed you or showed you like you should try this?
getting into art, not real, but I think I've always been like following just a gut feeling since I was studying at Hyper Island. Was also like a continuation of getting into digital media
Hmm.
or the digital
What's Hyper
art and
Island?
doing that.
Sorry.
It's like a trade school, but it's all about like it's a mix between media, what's it called? Entrepreneurship is the word. And
Entrepreneurship.
like
Okay, cool.
this,
What is this like a
yeah.
Swedish
So
thing?
yeah. No, this is it started in Karlskrona.
Karlskrona. And
And
it's like a real
yeah.
island?
Well, it's actually the school was located on an island when I was studying
Okay.
there.
Okay, it's cool.
So
That's pretty cool.
that's why I think that's why it have the island in it.
Interesting. Is it like it's like a university or like a college or something like that?
It's only the one I went to. It's only a 2-year education, and you have
Okay.
like about 1 year is you're at the school, and then there's like 7 months of internship. So like
Oh wow.
it's pretty fast. It's pretty fast
Almost
paced, and then you're supposed to be
like a bridge between high school and university or something like that. Like a
yeah,
gap year or
something like that.
something
Yeah,
like
that's or like what do you mean? Like a gap year is
that.
when you take a
Like between.
break, right?
Yeah, I guess not a gap year, but like in between, just like when you finish you're gonna go to it after high school, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you could like Hyper Island. You could do it as a master's. I think
Hyper
some
Island.
people. Yeah,
I
it's
love the name.
yeah, you should look it up. It's a fun place. So that was like
Sounds
you
awesome.
meet a lot of inspiring people, and there's like a big network, which is like
Mm,
just brilliant.
mm.
There's a lot of creative people yeah, comes out
To
of
like,
it.
help you kind of like focus your your wants and kind of like things that you like to do, and give you like a little bit more
Yeah.
of understanding of how to do it as like a career kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I got my eyes to the motion graphics because I was doing like a
Mm.
general digital media, and then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I had the like fellow classmates that were like going into development or programmers, and some went to project management, and me and a couple others went more like motion graphics, film.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's like
Awesome.
very general and broad way to get into it.
Right, right. But at least you get like a high level kind of like this is what you could do if you focus on it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is important, especially like, a lot of people I talk to, like they go to university, and in university they take a class of like motion graphics or like, a class of coding or something like that. And then they're either like they learn a little bit, but they're a little bit turned off by it, maybe because they're not like getting a good, introduction to it, or maybe it's like out of their wheelhouse, and then only later they pick it up again. I think it's interesting that, to have something that's like on a high level, it's almost like a course, but in like a more structured thing, where it's like you chose the course that you want to do. You're kind of getting the guidance that you need, but on a more structured, higher level where it's like a Hyper Island. I mean, come on, Hyper Island, like that's Hyper Island.
It sounds fun.
So okay, cool. So you got into 3D there, and then was it kind of like the moment that you touched motion graphics in 3D? You're like, okay, this is what I'm gonna focus on. I'm gonna actually show a little bit of your 3D work because it's kind of interesting to see the trajectory between the imagery that's like this very kind of like otherworldly kind of space, and then kind of seeing it being made into 3D. I mean, like, you just look at kind of like these kind of imageries, turn the sound off, but you look at these kind of imageries, super compressed, then you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of like what your paintings looked like, but now, in 3D with motion. I mean, it's like, look at that. It's so sick, that little close up over there. Yeah, I mean, was it like kind of, you were just like, okay, I can do this now in 3D, but nobody's teaching you how to make that kind of stuff, right? Like, how did you learn your approach to 3D? Like, how did you take like, okay, I'm drawing this with this kind of shading and this kind of like lighting and these colors. How did you make that into kind of like your 3D world? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think it's a big part of the process was because I think that a lot of it was that I started commercially, so that's how I was starting to learn the programs.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got to like when I got to Brickland, I started to learn, which we shifted to Redshift, and I
Mm.
was learning cinema and Redshift, and then it was like, so once I started understanding Redshift, I saw like, oh, this renderer is actually really nice for doing these kind of shadings that I'm looking
Mm.
for. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why it just does it in that way when you're not trying to do something realistic.
Mm.
So just like learning the tools kind of unlocked what I do with paintings, but it unlocked the digital aspect of it.
Mm.
Does it make sense?
Totally,
So kind of
totally.
like learning the hammer. How does the hammer work? What I do with it, and then it's like, oh, that's what it does. But what else could I do with a hammer? Kind of.
Interesting. Like you learn the tool, and then you apply the tool how you need it in some way, or how you want it to be applied for yourself.
Yeah. So if I'm using it for like commercial projects, and I'm like, okay, then like, it's always been like a complementary journey for me. Like I learned something with a commercial project, and then like, oh, okay, this is how I can do some things, and then I can implement that in my like psychedelic work.
Interesting. That's like there's that I don't know if it's an argument, but it's like one of those things of like, oh, you take commercial work and you work for like some evil corporation or whatever, but then the money that you got from that evil corporation you use to make the world better. Like kind of I can't remember the word, but it's like passing it on or like transmuting the energy in some way. Obviously Brickland is not an evil corporation, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, tell us about Brickland. It's a commercial studio. I think it's a pretty big one in Sweden, right? It's like a pretty well-known studio. Tell us a little bit about it. What's it like working at a studio? How many people work there? Like, give us a little bit of a rundown. What it's like on the day-to-day.
Yeah, no, I think I'll like say the first thing is like the best part about it. It's when you're like how it's complemented my VJ journey and digital creation and my painting. It's like always be surrounded by people who are better than you in different ways. It doesn't have to be that they're better than you in your area, but or that you generally have talented people around you. Because you don't even have to go ask them something. You can just walk around,
like,
and you're gonna be like, "Oh, cool, what's that?" Yeah. And you ask what's that, and they'll tell you about it, and you learn something about it. So
smart
that you'll implement. So that's like I think the best part about being at a studio. Even though it's like the downside would be that you're always by the computer at the end of the day because you're at the work by the computer, and then you go home and you want to do your art, or I want to do my art, and then I'm by the computer.
Yeah, I mean, being on the computer is kind of like one of those things. It's like a double-edged sword, I kind of was such a nerd and geek that I always was kind of by the computer anyways. And then when I started working at the computer, I'm like, oh, this might be a problem. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like why I choose to live in rural areas or like close to nature, preferably in nature, because it's like at least when I look out my window or when I go for a walk with my dog or whatever, at least I'm like sucked into like a much more grounded energy than like if I walked around the city or I went for a walk in the city. I'm like still in that kind of like blah, 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 which is like not, the computer isn't like that, but the computer isn't grounded and like real, and like to me the city is not real either. It's like some facade of like matrix, whatever you want to call it, but the nature is like, this is reality, this is the ground truth of like what's going on. And just being around trees and animals and quiet is like reminds you of that. I think that that's very important. And like, I mean, I could spend a whole day without going outside, not even just by like if I have a deadline and now I have a kid, so it's like, okay, I missed the chance to go with him on a walk, I missed the chance to take my dog for a walk, it's now dark, I have to finish this deadline. So it's like from the morning to the night, I didn't go outside. And like, as long as I can kind of like get the energy around me, then I feel okay. But if I'm like, in my apartment all day and like, I don't have, it's like beep, beep, like all day, all night, then it's like, I start to lose a little bit of like, not like reality, but just like kind of like the point of things, and and I think with digital art, a lot of times you're kind of like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just on the computer all day. Like, am I wasting my time? And the answer is maybe, but most likely if you're doing something creative, then no, you're doing what you want to be doing, right? It's just the trick of like, oh, I'm not physically moving a paintbrush, I'm typing and clicking. The energy and the intention is still of like expression and self-realization, but it's lost sometimes in like the digital sphere. So I think that like that kind of that balance, I think, is really important.
Definitely, definitely, yeah. And I don't, yeah, like you say, it's like if you, a moment that you're making art is never wasted, I'd say. I know, at least that's what I feel about like the times that I've sat, through whole days and nights, like you say, it's not like I never regret that moment that I was sitting by the computer, as long as I was doing like making art, for example.
Yeah.
If I'm scrolling Reddit, I might regret it.
Well, Reddit is better than scrolling Facebook, that's for sure.
Sure.
Maybe,
Well, it's
maybe.
circles of hell.
Depends.
Circles of hell.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah, I mean, like the commercial work, is it something that, your is it like something that you want to take to a different level, or is it more of just like, this is paying my bills, this is kind of like a good place to like learn and hone my skills on a high level? Like, did you ever imagine yourself kind of working at like a commercial studio?
Well, yeah, I think when I was going into I'm going to say Hyper Island again, one more time.
Hyper Island.
When I, yeah, when I went in there, I was like, Brickland is kind of the studio that I want to be at, or like that kind of a level. And then it took me like sort of 10 years, and I've been going through a few different agencies and stuff. And now I've been here for 5 years. Oh wait, no, I was working for like 6 years, and then I got to Brickland, right? So that was sort of like my trajectory was never like psychedelic art. That's not, or art in general. It's not really where I come from. I come from like, oh, I found motion graphics. It's cool to make that commercially because that's a way to like make money out of it.
Mm-hmm. And you're enjoying
Before
it.
I even, yeah, I'm enjoying. It's fun. It's very like a creative job. I get to, fool around all day in a software. It's kind of a luxury. And then, as time goes along, and then I found the raves, and then I like, oh shit. I think even the second like psychedelic party I went to, that's where Delta Process was playing here in Gothenburg. And that's like my initiation into like psychedelic culture.
Nice. So actually, kind of like later on in life, huh? Like in your 20s.
Yeah, definitely.
Like in your
yeah, no,
mid
definitely
20s.
like yeah, painting was mid-20s, and like the VJing thing is, that's basically 2 or 3 years old. Like my first digital piece I was making in the spring, and then in the summer I was like talking to Faye and Fede.
That's amazing. I mean, that's like, this is like, obviously, I think after your set we'll get into like a more esoteric land, but I think this is kind of like this is the plant and the reality of the psychedelic world kind of like speaking to you in a way of like, hey, we like what you're doing. Or it's not like we, but like the universe is like, this is good what you're doing. Here's a stepping stone, right? Or here's a path that if you go down and you choose to do it, you don't have to, right? Nobody's forcing you to go talk to Delta Process, but here they are. You're doing this thing. Maybe if you go down this path, and maybe you can go do something even, you can blast these messages in a bigger way. I love that. I feel like that's like a lot of, there's so many like anecdotal evidence of like that being a thing, and I think that even now with like what we're understanding more and more about quantum mechanics and kind of like how these things really work in a science level, then we're seeing it more and more being proved. And then obviously with the ancient knowledge and kind of like the more traditional things, it's like that's how it works, right? Like the initiation, and you just kind of like be, and by being you're shown things, and that's kind of like Eastern Buddhism. And then you look at like South American kind of like traditional things of like, maybe it's not like sitting down and meditating, but it's like go to the forest, cut down this plant, take this plant, learn about it, fast on it, get like initiated by the plant, and then that's gonna open up lots of different doors for you, and there's many different places for you to go. And it's like, what are you really doing? You're just eating a plant for a month. like you're just doing that one thing, and then because that you did that thing, then your mind is expanding, and you're now, you know, a medicine man, or you're now a doctor, or you're now an artist, or a hunter, whatever it is, you know. So it's like, I think that through kind of like you finding something that made you feel good, like raving, right, which we can talk about as well, and kind of having this expression that you wanted to let out, those kind of things like together culminated and gave you this path into like a VJing, which can be a really good place to put your art in front of a lot of people at once in a very fast way. Yeah, I mean, thank God that you met Delta Process, you know, and I mean, I also started from Delta Process. They never were like, hey, we want you to be part of our crew. I don't know. They don't, you know, it's a different relationship, but they were also the first people that I saw VJing. I don't know if I've ever told this story. I guess I could tell. This is a good episode to tell it, but like, maybe I did. I don't know if I definitely have said it, but I don't know if I said the details. But like, yeah, I mean, I was at Modem, and like, you know, it was like back in the day, like 2015, like when they were like on the fucking hill in the mud. And like I'll just say it, I was selling a substance, you know, as one does when they're young and at a festival and kind of trying to go to 10 festivals in the summer. You got to work, and I didn't have any other job. So I'm going to sell substances. That's kind of like what you're going to do. But this was a very specific substance that everybody really likes to do. And especially when somebody offers it to you for free, it's kind of like, you're the fucking coolest guy ever. Like, yeah, for sure. So that was kind of like my introduction to, I won't, you know, say specifics, but like that was my introduction to them. Sure. and like my way in, because I wasn't really like, I was making art, but it was much more like film oriented and like, you know, I wouldn't call it psychedelic. Maybe like, you know, like Dali-esque, or like, you know, kind of like I was very, you know, interested in like, what's his fucking name? Kubrick, like Kubrickism, and like kind of this, you know, it's very realistic and kind of like ultra realistic filmmaking style, but it's also kind of like almost surrealistic in some ways, or cerebral in some ways. So yeah, I mean, like it wasn't like, hey, look at my art. It was more like, hey, you want to do this shit and for free, and I can just hang out and watch you guys. But that was kind of like, you know, also like just seeing them, watching them, and being like, okay, I'm kind of dabbling with Resolume, I'm kind of playing with Resolume. They're doing it in a VJ software, not Resolume, but like, okay, I kind of get like VDMX. It's like kind of the same thing. And then just going home and thinking about it, and sitting with it and being like, okay, well, I want to do this as well. Is so, you know, that was kind of like also my initiation into VJing. But yeah, I mean, it's like you kind of met them with this kind of like background, or you know, you had this talent and skill, and I think that it's so, you know, not to like, you know, stroke your ego so much, but like it really does speak volumes about your work that like, you know, they saw it and they're like, oh, I see the potential. We see the potential here. Let's bring you on board and give you like, you know, the pedestal that you need. Was it kind of a natural thing for you to pick up VJing? Like performance is so different than like painting or, you know, making art. Like what was it kind of the feeling of like, okay, now I'm going to perform with the VJ tool?
Oh man, I'm definitely still learning, like all the way. I feel like I suck at playing part, and my strength is definitely in the production or making the thing, and then playing is, you know, I'm trying to find gigs in order to practice, not only to be you know, playing at home is like, it's cool to do like a mix and stuff like that, just to not to forget it, but having the like being in the moment, in the pressure, and like looking at the stage is just, you know, that's what you got to practice. Totally. I realize, because it's so easy to lose yourself in a moment, and then you got your mom's spaghetti all over your fucking lap, and what do you do?
That's funny.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've been there, like in short periods while I was playing, but then it's like, okay, let's get back. Let's get back. You gotta,
Mm,
stay in the moment. Being present is like
mm,
definitely key. Not to
mm.
just fly off and what am I gonna do next, and what's gonna come after.
Almost like trusting in the thing that you're doing to a point of like, just being in the moment and being in the flow. I think that's probably
Yeah,
a good start. Yeah,
yeah,
VJing is
yeah.
one of those
And
skills that's
doing it often is like the key as well, I think, because
I
I
was gonna
haven't done
say
it a lot, so
it's an experience thing. It's like it's one of those things that's like you can be naturally like talented at like beat matching and like understanding rhythm and maybe even understanding music of like what's the next thing gonna be, where's the swell, how do I do that, but it's like that translating into the right buttons to press, the right effects to do, what looks cool on a stage, what works on a stage, and then obviously like the multi different types of stages, right? Like, and different projectors and different lighting conditions and LED volumes. And like, it's so many different types of aspects that like, it's really just experience. I do think that you can, like, what you're saying, like sitting at home making sets is so valuable because you'll learn a huge part of it, which is how do I play with music, like how do I visualize music, right? Which is, you don't need a
mm,
stage or like an audience to do that. You just need to listen and do.
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
that you're really smart by doing that. I wish I did it more. I'm like so rusty. For me it's like a bike. Like if I'm at the gig, maybe my first 20-30 minutes will be shitty, but then I'll get back into it.
Mm,
But I should practice more
yeah.
often because it's like really practice just makes perfect in everything. um, and then yeah, I think what you're saying, like having gigs, like being able to be in the space and get to experience, and it's like it's so different when there's an audience, it's so different when there's a stage. um, those two
It
things
was a lot of
marry.
fun. I was in. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Like, as because it doesn't have to be like Modem is crazy and the Hive stage is insane. So when you before Modem, I was in Lisbon for a while, and I was like with the VJ Anonymous. I met some of the crew from VJ Anonymous,
Okay.
and they did like a smaller show, like in a basement, super underground party
Nice.
techno style. And we're
Nice.
just like, I think we were four people rigging different projectors. And it was just a lot of fun, to be like super small, just, experiment, just play around. And after a while, I looked at another projector and I realized they had been feeding my feed into their VJ thing. And it was
Didn't
like
even.
all mixed together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, doing these small, or not, I shouldn't say small things, but like different kind of venues, different kind of events, like all have their purpose and like
Intimate.
place. And yeah. They all have their place.
Totally, and and like you said, like I, it's so funny because you're naturally getting something that a lot of people don't really understand. Of like, if you're just around people that are better than you at something, you're gonna become better. Like, I think that that's like something super important. Like, a lot of people don't want to be outshined or they don't want to be outdone, and then maybe they'll be really good at something, but they'll be
Mm,
plateauing, right? Because they're not getting
mm,
that like just naturally, like you can learn on your own and you can figure things out on your own, but by seeing somebody who's better than you, it's going to be like transported in a much more powerful way. Especially if you can like dissolve your kind of like, oh, jealousy or like, ego about it, then it's like your consciousness is just going to be like, yes, oh yes, I get it. um,
no, it's a good thing to remember that you suck sometimes. It's very healthy. I think
yeah,
it's
for
healthy,
sure.
like ah, shit, man.
For
What
sure.
am I doing? Like,
That's
it's not
funny.
permanent. Like, you're gonna get better, but like every now and then, I think it's like I found it pretty healthy to realize that, shit.
That's good. That's good. I that's hard. That's hard.
Hmm.
I think I'm a little bit too much of a narcissist to be able to like accept it, you know? Like I can accept when I fail. Like if I fail, I can accept it and like learn from it, but I don't want to be reminded that I suck. You know what I mean? That's a tough one. Like
Mm.
I if I'm like sucking, it's because I'm sucking, not because it's like it it gets into like the what's the thing imposter syndrome of like you're like,
Right.
oh, I suck, but really it's not that you didn't do anything wrong, you're just like,
Hmm.
worried about your thing. So I think it
Yeah.
takes like another level of confidence or like self love or self like you know appreciation to be able to remind yourself that you're not as good as everybody else while still maintaining like some sort of like trajectory of like I want to be better. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Hmm. Definitely. No, I think that's like a thing that's been in the, especially like in the commercial world. I feel like I've always been exposed to people who are like, super talented. Their renders are super crisp, and like their timing, tempo, animation is just on point. And how am I ever gonna get to that level?
Mm. Right. And then
And
you want to
just
get to that
coming,
level.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So go get it.
Go get it.
Gotta go get it.
So psychedelics. You mentioned that you kind of like got into them in your take a drink of water for this one. You got into them when you're in your 20s. Um, what can you tell
You're
us
not
about
supposed to
them?
be mixing water with psychedelics.
Yeah, no, you are. Don't say that. That's come on. Drink a lot of water. A lot of water. A lot of
Sure.
water. You're gonna have somebody on their trip being like, "Ah, it's poison." um,
I think isn't that like in ceremonies? Isn't that or I don't know if it's depending on the lineage, but when you go into the teepee, you don't take another sip of water until
it
you go
depends.
out of the teepee.
It depends what lineage for sure, and there are like I mean, there are some ceremonies that I've partaken in that like there's the water round or there's like the water prayer, and during that round or during that time you don't drink. Um, but yeah, I mean it's like how intense of a ceremony are you gonna do, or how strict of a ceremony are you gonna be? I mean some of them are like very strict and serious. Um,
Mm.
I'm pretty much I would, unless I'm told explicitly by like a shaman or a teacher like don't drink, I'm gonna drink. I mean like I'm parched.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm parched. I need a drink.
for
I'm
sure.
losing
Folks out
thread
there,
of
have a drink.
reality. I need something to go down my throat to be able to remind me that I'm normal and I'm a human. um, but yes, for sure. There's definitely like more traditional like kind of lineages or like more like stricter ceremonies. They won't want you to drink or eat for sure. I mean, like I try to fast before a ceremony in
Mm.
general. Um, but yeah, I mean, tell us about your experiences in this. I mean, I'm very fascinated to know a little bit about like what happens in Sweden in like the kind of ceremony psychedelic space. We've talked about this a bunch, just personally. So just share with us a little bit about your kind of journey with psychedelics, maybe how you went from just like doing acid as like a partier to sitting in ceremony and kind of like understanding it a little bit deeper.
Mm. Yeah, I think like actually before the acid, I did mushrooms that I picked myself. That was growing
Nice.
growing here in the Nordics. Uh, but and that was about, is that 12 years ago now? I think somewhere around 12, 13 years ago the first time. But so it was never really in a ceremonial setting. I was mostly enjoying
Mm-hmm.
it on my own in
Mm.
like very reflective way. So I guess it was sort of ceremonial, but in my own space. I didn't really have the knowledge of the like different lineages
Mm-hmm.
or how a ceremony even worked, when I
Mm.
started
Mm.
out. Nowadays I wouldn't do it that way, but I regret nothing because I didn't really have a bad experience
Mm.
during the time I practiced on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely like coming into a ceremonial setting in a more traditional way was like eye-opening for sure.
Yeah.
coming from that kind of background when you do it on your own, and it's like I rarely did it at parties. Like I talked about the acid, but that was also at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like at parties, I was more or less never that inclined to do psychedelics because I just wouldn't function with, you know, first getting there and then getting home, but then also being there and not being able to go home if I want to go home. You
That's
know,
funny.
that's just I knew that wouldn't like work for my part or
Mm.
work on like at least here in Sweden, because there also comes the question of legality, and you know, I couldn't imagine anything worse sitting in a what do you call, like a, not a prison but a jail cell
Mm-hmm.
overnight, you know, high on mushrooms. I would
Oh
just
no, it's terrible.
no. So I've been super like cautious
Mm.
on that end,
Mm-hmm.
doing it my own way, which, and I think doing it in my way was also what unlocked the paintings and what unlocked like all
Mm.
these visions and connections that I've been looking for, or that I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
This, you know, I guess Boom is the first time that I feel like, wow, doing it in a social setting is definitely fine. Like, but that place is made for that also.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Boom is a ceremony. You know,
yeah.
I mean, these big festivals. I think a lot of them have this kind of like intention infused into them. That like even if you're not
Yeah.
going there with an intention, you're kind of forced to be in one. Or not
Mhm.
forced, but like you know, you're led to be in one.
You're gonna take part in it, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
high or not.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, that's also like doing it with in a ceremonial setting with in a, you know, whether it's a teepee or a dome or anything like that. With the fasting, I did like a juice fast, so you're like completely empty, and
Mm-hmm.
both the Wachuma and the Aya, those
Mm.
have been like they're fairly recent and very profound. I feel
Yeah,
like a stepping stone on my journey.
beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you know, we did have we did have a chance to talk about that a lot, and I think it's something that like it's hard to kind of talk about without sounding either like pretentious, maybe is not the right word, but like without sounding like, oh yeah, I sat in a ceremony and like you should sit in a ceremony, and
Mm,
it's like almost like the opposite of what the whole thing is. It's like not a religion or a cult or like you should do it. You know, I don't
mm,
think it should be like that. I think it's like, and this is something that I was taught very early on. It's like, okay, where I the first time I did a ceremony was when we moved, me and my now wife, we moved up north to the mountains in Israel, and like, you know, we went to this like town. We lived in this town that was like a very small community, and they were all hippies, meditators, very like, you know, earthly people. But I never made the association of like that they're doing ceremonies. I was experimenting with a lot of psychedelics and kind of like you said, like my own journey, you know, from just reading like McKenna and Leary, I was like, okay, I have to have a set and setting. I need to have like an intention. Otherwise, I'm going to have a bad time. And like, that was kind of like natural. So every time I did the psychedelics with friends or at a party, I was always like, okay, I want to fix this thing about myself. I want to learn this thing about myself. Or even I just want to have like a really fun time. I want to dance. I don't want to talk to anybody. You know, like I had like an idea of what I was going into, but I never brought it down to like actual grounding. And then this town that we lived in, our neighbor, after living there for maybe like a year and a half, maybe even longer, she's like, hey, do you guys want to come to a ceremony? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, with, you know, Wachuma. I'm like, what is that? She's like, oh, cactus. I'm like, what, mescaline? Like, you know, you mean the cactuses that we make into like a tea and just drink, you know, like as kids, you know, not kids, but like whatever, as like, you know, as like a at parties or whatever. She's like, yeah, you know, and I kind of like, you've heard of ayahuasca, you kind of understand that like that's something that you do in like a setting in South America, but I never made like the full connection of like, oh, really a ceremony is just like a bunch of people with somebody who has experience with guiding you into this thing and some sort of lineage that so many different types of lineages, you know, praying, singing, and just like this very strong intention of like coming to better yourself or better the world, etc. And like what she taught me was like, oh, the reason I'm like, I got upset. I'm not upset at her, but I'm like, hey, we've lived here for a year and a half. How come I've never heard about that, the fact that you do this? And she's like, well, I guess the plants weren't ready for you. The plants didn't, you know, you weren't ready for the plants, or the universe wasn't, whatever it is, you know, whatever you want to subscribe to. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like, you know, last week when we did a ceremony, you popped up in my head, and like the medicine was like, maybe you should talk to your neighbors, you know. And then she's like, that's why I decided to come to you. And it was like such a crazy time. I had my good friends Diego and Daniel Navi were visiting. Prisma, Diego were visiting like Israel, and they were just like at my house for like a week. And like, you know, and they were very similar experiences of like, you know, yeah, we kind of know about this thing, but we've never really sat in a ceremony before. And like Diego also has like a super lineage of like his you know, his culture and stuff. But so it was like all these kind of things fell into place. And then the craziest thing was my cousin, rest in peace, like committed suicide like that night of the ceremony. And then it was like this whole question of like, should we do this? Like, should I do this? You know, like, am I going to bring like a bad energy to the whole thing? And, you know, I have to go to her funeral like the next day. And like, I sat with it for like the whole evening before we were going to go sit with it. And then I went to speak to my neighbor, Keren, who's like the, you know, the shaman and like the facilitator. And she said to me, listen, there's no reason for you not to. Like, you're not going to have, like, I'm going to hold the space for you. Like, you don't have to tell everybody that you're going through this thing. But, like, yeah, if you go into a dark place, then that's part of the experience. And, you know, as long as you don't feel like you're going to have... It was kind of like she's letting me make my own choice, but also giving me, like, a little bit of confidence of, like, you're in a safe place. Like, this is actually probably a healing opportunity. And in retrospect, I mean, it was like probably the best choice I made, because I got to say goodbye to my cousin. You know, her spirit and being was with me the whole time. And, you know, I got to like give her some sort of hug or some sort of, you know, like just saying goodbye in like a really meaningful way. And then going to her funeral, like the day after a ceremony, I was like, my heart was so open, and like I was so like empathetic, but also not like sad. I don't know if that's the right word, but like I was sad, but I was like, she's in a way better place. Like, you know, she wasn't happy in this earth, like to the level that she killed herself. And she's like, you know, she was a teenager. Like, so she's like free of her pain. She's free of her sorrow. She's in like a better place. I saw it. I felt it. And now I can be here for my family who's grieving, but I can be like super open and accepting of all their pain and grievances. So it was just like, I don't know. I felt like it was such a, I don't think I would do it again. Like, you know, if I was about to go to a ceremony and somebody close to me passed away, I don't know if I would do it. I would probably say, okay, maybe I'll do it next week or whatever. But the initiation into like what this means as like a energetic kind of thing, and then what like death means, and like what that kind of like, you know, being available for the people that you love, like all these things kind of like made sense, you know. And it was really like, oh, there's a reason I haven't done it until now. There's a reason that I've experimented and, you know, had my journey with this kind of like substances and psychedelics and plants, and haven't like understood like what the real, quote unquote, real meaning of it is until this moment, you know.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of like a long drawn out thing of saying that like there's like a time and place for you to be you as a person, to be initiated or shown into this world. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to search it out. Like if you want to go to search it out, that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? The plants are wanting you to do that. But you shouldn't feel like you need to search it out. Like, you know, I think that that's like kind of this weird double-edged thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone unless they're actually looking for it. Like,
Right.
if you don't want to do it, like, don't do it. Like,
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. And I mean, I feel I've made about all the journeys are about healing in the end. Like, I feel like I might be getting, you know, visions or gifts that may bring along, but in the end, it was all about healing whatever wound I was healing that night or day. And that's what it's always about. Like, you come back to, and if you do the healing, that's when you get the gifts of visions or whatever might be your passion.
Growth. Yeah.
Yeah, the growth. You get that with you back home, sort of.
Yeah. For sure.
And I definitely like you. I didn't really have a relationship with praying before, like proper ceremonies. Like I've heard pray. You know, you're supposed to pray if you're in church, and like, not that I went to church that often, but I was never like, I didn't grow up in a specific. Well, it was Christian, but not like in any way. You know, it was not like going to church every Sunday or anything like that. But you know, the idea of praying is just changed after ceremonies. It's like, what is a prayer? And you know, like, it doesn't have to be that you're praying for a god for a specific thing. It's like you can pray everything is a prayer all the time.
Totally.
If you want.
It really is. Yeah, it's a expression. It's really like this is like very esoteric, but it's really like when you make something or you perform something art-wise, that's almost like what a prayer is, but in like an art and expression is like you releasing something from inside of you outwards to the world for the universe, for people, for whatever to see and feel and get. And a prayer is kind of the same thing, but with words and like your mind, right? Of like, I'm going to express this in words. I'm going to say it out loud. People are going to hear it. It's going to be heard. It's going to be felt. It's going to be seen, whatever it is. And then by the same way of the art of like, oh, I release this. I self-express this. Now I'm like getting the benefits of releasing this and self-expressing it. Other people are getting the benefits of releasing and self-expressing. The same thing with the prayer in some way. I don't know. It's a little bit wishy-washy, but I think that there's some similarity there, you know, of like, what is a prayer? It's just like you're just sending out signals. It's a frequency. That's maybe a better way of expressing it. It's a frequency, right? It's a frequency between you and the rest of reality, right? The rest of reality could be God, could be nature, could be other people, could be yourself even, you know, like your shadow self, your reflection, your growth self. Yeah, I think that's kind of what it is to me.
Definitely.
And it's like, you know, what you said is really, really powerful because I did grow up with praying and religion and, you know, and because it was so indoctrinated into my mind and dogmatic in my kind of experience for many years, I kind of like said, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to have this thing in my life. I don't want to, you know, maybe because of like fear of being sucked back into the religion, or maybe because of like, you know, being anti the thing that harmed me or whatever. But then through ceremony and through kind of like these experiences, I realized that like the prayer is amazing. And like, you know, if it's done out of will and out of my own choice, and like, it's like the difference of like, here's a book, read these words, and like, now I'm thankful for something, or now I'm grateful, or now I have a question or a want or a need or a request. Do you know what I mean? And like the two differences are so different, right? Of like, you need to pray 3 times a day. You need to pray right now from this book. Or like, I am appreciative, or I'm grateful, or I want to bless something because I'm happy, or because I want to elevate it, right? Or I'm scared, or I'm hurt, or I'm you know, I want something, or I need something. Like, everything's a legitimate time to pray. but the structure of it is like where it becomes weird for me, you know?
Yeah, because of the container that it used to be in. Yeah. So now it's, yeah. No, I get that. I definitely get that. It's, so you feel that it's also opened you up to it more.
Totally, because it kind of like shattered that container of like, first of all, it removed the fear that I'm going to be sucked back into some dogmatic religion. And it also like just allowed me to see it in a different light of like, okay, I'm not in a synagogue praying with all the people the same thing. I'm just speaking words and saying thank you for something, you know, completely off the cuff, out in the moment, like just from what I'm feeling and going through. And it kind of like reminded me like, okay, well, why not be thankful for when I eat food? Like, why not? And this is kind of like in Judaism, you pray on your food when you eat it, right? You like say a prayer when you eat your food, and there's like multiple different prayers for different foods. And like, that's just kind of like what you do before you eat. But it's like rigid, and it's like, if you don't do it, there's a negative thing to it, right? And it's like, no, like I can just say, thank you for this food. I can just say bon appetit, but my intention is bless the food. You know what I mean? I could say enjoy your food, but my intention is enjoy it, you know, on a higher level. And if I don't say it, it's not like my food's going to be less good. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but if I do,
pissed.
yeah, exactly. But if I do, it's going to be more. I don't know. There's something, it's like a very hard thing to quantify. And I feel like it's something that you really have to like feel for yourself. And that's also another thing about kind of ceremony and spirituality is like, it's so subjective, you know. It's like there's truths, there's like objective reality, and there's like, you know, be a good person, good things will happen. Like I feel like that's like a objective thing, you know, don't kill people, don't do bad things. But like how you relate to spirit, God, nature, evolution, reality is so subjective, you know, like and I feel like that's kind of that's like the real shattering of religion to me, is like you can't have rules and dogma on something as subjective as spirituality and connecting to a higher power.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's when you put those kind of rules on a big group of people, it just gets, it's just gonna get messy in the end. And I mean, just being grateful, like when you wake up, is also an easy way to just practice your spirituality. It's just like, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
like whenever you feel it, just do it, and it's easy.
It's easy.
And nowadays I try to stay out of the big, the big dogmatic religious ways, because it just doesn't suit me really.
Were you part of it at any point? Like, was there like a moment where you kind of were attracted to it, or not really?
Not really, no.
Would you?
I think Sweden is like one of the most secularized countries in the world. In a positive and there's an up and down.
I was gonna ask, like, did you have spirituality growing up? Like, was there any kind of like idea of God, or kind of like how you connect to it, or something like that?
I think there's like a, I think Swedes generally say like, well, you know, I believe in something. I don't know what it is, but I believe in something. That's something. Like that's pretty common answer if you would go around like in the streets asking people what they believe in. And most people would be like Christian, just, you know, by default. But they might not be Protestant. How do I say that in English? Protestantism.
Protestant. Yeah. So when you were introduced to like prayer and like, you know, spirituality, was it like weird for you? Was it kind of like alien for you, or was it something that felt natural?
Do you mean during ceremonies, or like
during ceremonies? Yeah, leading up to it, kind of. Yeah.
You know, when they were talking about like praying and all this stuff before you go into the ceremony, it's like the first time I was like, what do you mean praying?
Right.
Do you mean like praying, like, you know, like
a
you
church?
do this, and then it's like, yeah. it's kind of, you follow along, or I followed along, and you see what happens, and you kind of pick up what they mean with it.
Mm.
You
Mm.
listen to them, and after a
Mm.
while you get it,
Yeah.
or you
You
start to get
feel it.
it.
You feel it. You
Yeah,
you
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 feel
know
it.
you
Yeah,
experience it. I think is a different thing.
yeah,
Yeah, and
for
I
sure.
you know I must say, like, growing up in this orthodoxy, right? I like, and in retrospect, I have these moments where in my childhood I remember like praying in synagogue on like a high holiday, or like on like like a very important holiday, and having this experience that I have in ceremony of like feeling, going through it, like feeling something real is happening and connecting, right? But
Mm.
it was fleeting, and I didn't notice that I was going through it at that moment. I just thought that I was doing the normal thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Only after I had experienced psychedelics and even later like ceremonies did I realize that that moment was that. You know what I mean? Like it's like a retro
Right.
almost, like of like, okay, when I was a kid and I felt close to God, I was like, yeah, that's kind
Mm.
of, it's like a, felt that was a fun holiday, like that was a cool thing, like, but not like connecting of like, oh, this is like the real essence of what the point of the religion is. You know what I mean? Like the point of all these spiritual religions is those moments, right? Not like me following the rules and praying 3 times a day because I'm supposed to. Um, but yeah, it was very in retrospect, like I understood that, and that's kind of that was also my journey of like not hating religion, or being so opposed to it, of like, oh, there are some positive aspects of this kind of like um, mentality, or this kind of like secular, not secular, conservative kind of like looking at things, because you're honed in, you know what I mean, versus like
Mm.
agnosticism is kind of like a little bit up in the air of like maybe, which I think I think there's benefits everywhere, but um having a kid, I kind of think a lot about like, how am I going to show him these things, right? Am I going to like, I'm obviously not going to be like rigid and like you better do this or you're going to be in trouble, because that's obviously bad, but I do want to be like, hey, this is a really good way to like connect with the thing. You don't have to do it, but it's a good way to do it. You know what I mean? Instead of like,
Mm. Mm.
you don't have to do anything and there's no real way, like being very, very like secular. I feel like there is some positives to like, hey, this is a bunch of, it's a bunch of tools. Here's a bunch of
Yeah.
tools to help you connect with spirituality. Do you have to use them? No. Are they good tools? Yes. Like, just being honest about that, I think, is like a good thing. Um, but anyway,
I think
we're
that's a
we're like,
good.
please.
No, I think it's a really good point. To have this container, or container or tool and tools, because sort of I think I figured my spirituality out as I went along. With the journeys, or learning about religions and what they've been like doing for the past 100 years, and like
Thousands.
separating that from the tools. The tools are
Mm,
the things that we're supposed to be taking with us, and
yeah.
like I don't come from a lineage. I don't have when I'm practicing sitting in ceremonies, like it's not that I come from a long lineage of doing these things. So it's I kind of found some respect for that aspect of it as well. Like, don't just jump head first in. It can get overwhelming if you're not like if you haven't considered your spiritual self in whichever way you want to do it. If it's through Christianity, Judaism, or yeah. So you come a little bit prepared if you have this container.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, I'm not sure.
Totally. No, it totally makes sense. It's exactly what
Mm.
I was pointing at, of like, um that's why I kind of asked you before, was like, was it strange to you? Was it weird to you? And I think that,
Mm.
again, stroking your ego, but like, maybe you do have a lineage, maybe there is something from your past, or your past life, or your ancestry, that is connected to some form of ceremony, spirituality, etc., that it maybe didn't feel like normal to you, but it didn't scare you or put you off, right? It was kind of like, okay, now that I get what it is, I'm kind of attracted to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that that's something because I had okay. We definitely should shift into the set because we're going long. But there's one more anecdote, like, and I won't go specific because I don't want to offend anybody. But like, we sat in a ceremony once, me and my wife, and a family member joined us. Okay, and this family member is like grew up Catholic, like super Catholic, and Catholic school, like very focused on Catholicism. And and they joined us, and it was like a really nice thing that they joined us. It was like kind of like they didn't drink any medicine, but they were sitting with us in the ceremony, and like it was so interesting because every time it came for their turn to pray, they didn't want to. And obviously nobody's forced to pray. That's the beautiful thing about a ceremony. Like you don't have to if you don't want to. But then at the end I was like wait a second, like you're from this world of like sitting and praying, like why wouldn't it feel natural for you to do it? And then I realized that like because they grew up with it in such a rigidity that like any straying of it is like totally against the law. Like if you're not in a church with a priest saying the specific words of the words, it's blasphemy. It's like totally, it's like a cult or like devil or whatever. Like I don't think she thought that, but that was kind of like in the person's psyche, right? Of like, hey, yeah, praying is normal, but like not this type of praying. You know what I mean? And like, what was the point of that story? There was a point. It was like, of like, the
Have the container and the tools for
yeah,
praying. Or...
yeah, like it can be done, like that there is that aspect of it that can be, like if you don't come from the right place per se, or you don't have the right openness, or it's not the right time for you, or you don't have the context, it can be very weird, right? Or it can be very maybe off-putting or not in the right time. Okay, well, speaking about religion, spirituality, and otherworldly places, I'm excited for you to take us on a journey. I'm really excited to see what you have ready for us here, and just take it away. And I'll probably ask a bunch of questions as we're going, but feel free to take us.
Thanks, man. Yeah. No, I'll be running through some Cinema 4D primarily. I think you can just prepped a few scenes, so if you ever feel like jumping in with a question, or if you have a specific piece from the website, just shoot away, and I'll dig up the file and
All of
ad
them.
hoc it.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Because I'm starting
Tao,
with the.
Can you just click that little hide on the bottom, the little the icon?
Right.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, where was I going? Yeah, I'm gonna show. You were doing a demo of it on the website. I'm gonna do the Solar Plaza thing.
Perfect.
I'll probably like show some behind the scenes, and then I'll like show some assets that I extract out of it, because I can never play back my cinema files. That's just an impossibility because they get too heavy. And but I'll start from the beginning on that piece because it's one of the bigger ones project-wise that I've done, and it just started out that I wanted to do something from Illustrator into cinema, basically, like make a pattern, get it into cinema. Nothing, probably not that big as it got in the end, because this piece that we're looking at here is what I started with. We could have that. That's like a fun starting point. And this is the like when I took it into cinema. Speaking about sucking, this is like the first time I hit render on Redshift with this pattern that I brought into cinema. And this was like the idea that I had from the start. I was gonna have the dragon coming out of the sort of the pattern. This is like where it all started. I'm starting with Figma just to give this one a little background before we jump into cinema.
Yeah, perfect. Can't get enough of Figma. Love it.
Yeah, I'm still learning, man. And I'm always like, if there's a advice I could give that I've gotten is to, always do play blast or hardwares if you are working in cinema, or, not going real time, because, I'm not a real time guy yet.
What did you say?
I
Always
keep
do what
constantly
blasts?
like it was called play blast in Maya, I think, but
Hmm.
it's also like a hardware render. So you just do like,
Just fast,
in
like
yeah, like this grayscale, there's no
gotcha,
materials, just the colors.
gotcha.
So you can, that's how I keep checking my animations, because, they're like
Ah, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
super wacky sometimes. I can show you
Yeah.
a version that's like really early when it's
Mm-hmm.
just out of control. Because I
Okay.
think this scene is basically animated without any keyframes at all. I think there's one keyframe which is rotating these, whatever these are, pyramids or conductors. And then it's like, this is sort of halfway through. This is some behind the scenes that I don't have on the website. It's like, at this point I was starting to get happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Is
But
it?
this is somewhere where it ends up.
It's interesting, like that you just kind of like go to the beginning for a second, just out of interest.
Uh,
Like it just literally starts from a pattern, and then like shapes and different kind of like feelings. It's like almost like yeah, it's like a feeling, right? Like it's
yeah.
it's very basic
Because
shapes that make something pretty, like mandala, like almost methodical, you know?
yeah, I think mandala was also an inspiration I had for this one, because I haven't really touched on like those kind of geometries yet when I was
Yeah.
making this, like symmetrical stuff in mandala, like, so this is definitely in that direction, I would say. Um, but yeah, no, it's like, and then it's like, you start, this is super shitty quality, but you start in here, and then it's like just it keeps on growing.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of lose control a bit.
Mm.
So it's interesting to see, just because that's sort of the process that I usually have. Sometimes I have like a almost finished sketch in my mind, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the time I don't. Like I start like this and I build progressively.
Hmm.
That's what I enjoy about like love about cinema, is just making these things, because it's fun doing it. It will get frustrating when things start crashing. Uh, but it's, yeah, I just really love the process of it.
Wow.
I'll jump into it. I'll show you my, proper mess. Yeah, just a
That's
little
what
side note
we
before I
like.
go
That's what we
in.
like here on the podcast. We like the messes.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, because I remember the first modem. I remember you asking about like a cinema file,
Yeah.
and it's the inner sanctum on the website is the one that I gave you.
Uh-huh.
And I was always curious, like, did you ever open that file? Because I remember that was like the first one I did, and it was like a total mess. It's so messy
I'll be honest.
and heavy.
That one I didn't. But this year, when you sent me the the swamp, I did jump into that, and
Right.
I did extract. Oh, I know. I remember what it was. The inner sanctum. I did take a path, because there was a
Oh,
path that was
cool.
really cool with like the dragon that was like kind of flying around. Is that the one?
Right. I don't know if
Because that
that's
the
if
first
it's
year
if
you
this is the
gave me,
dragon, it's a different one.
it must be a different one. Because the first year you gave me like you gave me something on like the high on the hive that I used the path from it, and like it was like a path that was going in and out of the hive and all around the hive. I used that path, and then this year you gave me your file from the swamp, and I dived into it just to like, I really wanted to see like what you were doing, but I didn't have a chance to actually use it, unfortunately. It was
Yeah,
super
no,
difficult
that
to
was
do
because
it.
I was just thinking about the first one that I gave you, because that was, yeah, no, it was, yeah, it would just have been fun to see your reaction. But I'll go in here,
Gotcha.
and I think I mean, since I always try to stay out of keyframes when I'm doing these kind of things, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, it would be impossible to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So, a big shout out to Fields in cinema.
Shout out to
So,
Fields.
Fields is the shit.
I mean, you're
Whatever
halfway
kind
you're
of field you
halfway
want to
to
do.
real time with procedural stuff.
Yeah, I think so. It shouldn't be too far off. I would love to try Notch, like more in depth.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like that would be very similar to cinema at least.
It is similar, yeah.
Let's see, where do I start? If I go down to, yeah, so I'm mainly building stuff with fractures. This is like fractures or cloners is the one stuff that I usually go to make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, with a fracture, you could either put 3 different objects and you can animate them independently with a noise field or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can control it with a time field. Let's see if I have this one is affected by this plane. This will be fun. So the plane is basically just you enter a value, and this is what it's going to be changing the fracture to.
Mm.
I wonder if I could just select that and then do this. Is that going to work? Yeah. So it's this little thing.
It's cool.
That's that one fracture is this. And then, you have tons of them.
So I never really got this aspect of cinema. Like a fracture is not necessarily like not necessarily like a mesh that's broken up, like fractured. It's more of like the pieces of the mesh that are like all make one mesh. Is that correct or?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. There's a Voronoi fracture that does the first
Voronoi,
thing
that's
you
like
said.
the pieces, right.
Yeah. Let's see, Plaza Conductor. So this would be an easier way to have an overview of it. So this is sort of like the building blocks. Let's go check this out. That's the conductor. Then you have the.
Oh wow.
So basically,
it's procedural kind of like movements.
Yeah, so yeah, you can. I guess this would be procedural because I could go in and change it very easily if I wanted to go
procedural.
Like
as long as it's not a keyframe, it's procedural.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm moving in that direction. So here's the rotation is the only thing that's moving because otherwise I would have to put. There's so many fractures in here that I would have to put them into a fracture that I can then like put a
rotation on it.
Let's see if I have that because there is like a field that's called just time. Then I could easily just, if this is a rotation, or now it would be like, it's going to animate the object from its original position to 15 centimeters up Z depth on 30 frames, for example.
Almost like it's like not an expression, I guess, because it's still a field, but kind of does the same thing that an expression would do, right? Like move X on, this amount over this amount of time.
Exactly. And then if you want to, you want it to, sine, then it would be going there and back.
Mm-hmm.
And then et cetera, for all these like. So if you want to keep it looping, you want to make it like, 50 frames, this is like, when I found this, it was like, oh, perfect. No more keyframes. Before that, I was always using the shader field, but it has its like, randomness is not always great. I usually love it, but sometimes it just needs to be subtle and added in the background. This one is pushing out the blue things. And then I use the quantize in this case to like give it, the steppy kind of animation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. That's the thing that I love about cinema. It's just, it is kind of procedural with the animation.
Mm.
And then this like, this is let's see, did I build this? Yeah. Let's see this triangle here. Also a technique that I'm usually using to like make like simple objects more complex. Like this triangle is usually just, I mean, it's just, there we go. So,
Just one triangle.
it's just this, and then I want to add this, and then make
Are
it
you
animatable.
is it Boolean or is it just like intersecting with each other? There's no Boolean, right? You're not. It's not like hollow.
Uh, no, there's not. No, so this is what it is.
Oh, interesting.
See,
And
it's
is that a
I love
cloner?
this.
Is that a cloner
It's
or is it
actually just this could be a box, or it could be any
right?
like shape that you would like to have. Then I put a
Right.
poly effects on it,
Mm-hmm.
which you can demonstrate. I guess the easiest way would be to, you can
Huh.
like, each polygon on that
Interesting.
object, it's gonna be like manipulated.
Interesting.
And so you could scale them down, or you could push them out,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you do that, you can put a Mo extrude. I guess it's a Mo graph extrude or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Motion graphics extrude deformer technicalities. And then you can, you can
Gotcha.
extrude that polygon. It extrudes those,
Right.
like,
On its
individual
normals.
polygons.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And then what you can do with that is you just add a
Animate it.
effector to that, and then you get into fields, and then you have this. Tick, 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 tick,
Interesting.
tick.
So fields is like not even. It's not even actual like field. It's like literally just like a modifier almost like a. It's like a parameter modifier. Like you could choose what parameter to modify.
Yes, I guess fields is something that you add to all the what's it, all these, you can, well, you can put them in, even in deformers, you can put fields.
Gotcha. But
I mean,
but it's added to a parameter, right? It's not like a object that exists, or is
well,
it?
the fields is you can control the parameters that you set, I guess, because you could have a like a bend object. You bend something, and then you use a field to only bend it, or you could reveal the bend, for example. You could bend it with the help. Instead of animating the bend value, you bend it, and then you use field to control the bend.
Interesting.
I think
That's
you
cool.
could technically you could bend it, and then you put the time modifier or time
Mm-hmm.
field, and then it will like be, either bouncing back and forth, or
Interesting.
depending on what interpolation you choose.
Right. What animation you choose for it? Yeah.
Uh, so
This is
it's
great.
just sort of
I
rinse
love
and
seeing
since
this.
sort of rinse and repeat, and then, like, I was looking back at the big project today when I was setting it up, and I was like, how
Whoa.
did I
Figure
group
this
all
out.
this, because but since I built it from scratch, there was only the centerpiece there. It
Mm-hmm.
was, it's easier when it's small and build it big than, start messing around in the big thing.
Damn.
All these, like, the triangles going outwards is Mo spline,
Mm-hmm. Like a
and then I
cloner
just
on a
used
spline.
yeah. Let's see.
Hmm.
Go ahead. And that's I didn't really figure out the logic behind it, but I realized that there's a certain value that I can put, and then I make it the sequence like 2,000 frames, because that's when they loop, the rate of the cloner loops, rather, I should say.
What? 2,000 frames? That's the magic number.
I don't know. I don't. That's where I found, like, cause the really slow rate. So if I want to have like 1.5% rate, or I'll do a quick demo of it. So if I just want shit there, and then we're gonna have this on an object. Let's make this a little smaller. And then we want, let's see. It's the Helix is the one I'm looking for.
Hmm.
5. So if I want to do like 3%, is usually like a pretty good slow speed for my stuff. Now it looks really slow, but when you have a ton of things going on, this is like the
Yeah,
maximum speed I want to put stuff to.
for sure.
And now it's jumping, and then oh shit, did a loop.
Well, I
This
guess it
one,
kind of
it's usually
does.
like,
Yeah, there
oh
you go.
no, it does. Yeah, it does loop. I don't know why, but it's like 1.5%, 3%, 6%, which is usually my range. That those values loop at 2,000 frames.
It's so
I think I
weird.
was like, there was a point when I was Googling this, because I was Googling how the rate works, because that's the only thing that keeps pushing, the cloners along the
Right,
spline.
right, 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 right.
Because otherwise, if I do the offset, I have to animate it with a
Yeah,
keyframe.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. Interesting. It's so like wild. It's such a random
Yeah.
number, but I guess there's some reason probably behind it that we just don't understand.
Maybe if we go here, we're gonna find the answer. If we find like the help for it, or like what the function actually does, and maybe we'll explain
Yeah.
it. Because I remember I was Googling and like Redditing and looking for the how to loop a cloner, stuff like that, and then I eventually found this way of doing it.
Nice.
And it's fun. And then you just keep doing that to millions of objects. And I was also doing, because there's also some outline animation on some of this stuff. Some also like trying to control that in a sensible way. Let's see let's see if I can find that. Oh, yeah, and I think it's only max on one thing, but if you have cinema, just look for the trim spline. So that's basically a tool to animate splines. So,
Okay.
I don't know what. So basically, what you let's go back to this one. So I get it here. Let's see, there's a spline here somewhere. This one. So if I put this trim thing on that, can do
Oh,
this,
nice.
and then you put a rate on it, so it's gonna be like.
Now you have lines drawing.
Perfect.
Nice. Sick.
That's simple little things.
Does that work with vectors as well, or with like a SVG? Because it probably would, right? It's like
Yeah, it will. You can just bring an SVG into cinema and you just do this.
yeah, yeah.
So really quick way to get it up and running. I think what I was doing for this piece in the early stages was just
Ooh, nice.
so it can look
Sick.
like pretty cool on its own.
Of course,
Uh,
especially with the detail.
yeah, I think it suits perfect for all the people doing Shipibo patterns and
Mm-hmm.
these kind of animations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, talking about this is the play blasting I was talking about.
So you just get like a
Do like
understanding of what the motion's going to be and kind of how it's going to look.
Yeah. I think this was also like a useful thing, or has been a useful lesson in like working commercially, because this is usually how we deliver format or like early stages of a process when we're making a commercial or anything. Like this is how we show clients just for them to understand. Like you might have a style frame next to this. Like this is how it's going to look, and this is how it's going to move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kind of process.
Mm.
And if I go back to that one specifically, like, oh shit, these triangles in the circle is going way too fast. And maybe, the whole thing is going way too fast. I have to slow everything down, at least half the speed. So. All right, so this is a good process for me. Let's not say that. I think that's the useful process that I've shown from these Solar Plaza. It's the next fun one. Let's do the modem one.
Modem.
Modem. I can't believe I never went to modem like before I went there working. It's crazy. I've heard
That's
of the party. I
crazy.
mean, I've heard of it several
Crazy.
times from friends who love it. You know, yeah, it's insane. It's funny, you know, each time I get to Modem, I lose my luggage. Like both times I've gone to Modem, I
Really?
never get my bag. Yeah, yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. So I always have like the first 3 days I'm in the same outfit because I have no clothes.
That's like Modem's like, welcome.
Yeah, like, what do you need? You got your computer, you got the
Yeah, what do you need?
people, you got the party.
Exactly.
What do you, your stuff is just stuff.
That's so funny.
Fuck the stuff. All right. Oh shit, yeah. This is how it is moving around this scene.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, this is more of
The
a repeat, the
swamp.
more refined. The swamp, the mighty swamps. This one was crazy to see, both with the mapping, of course, but also just seeing it like when you get there the first time before the party starts. It's like, wow, it's just standing there. I mean, this building is massive. But yeah, no, this is more or less, I mean, repeat and refined process of what I was showing
Mm-hmm.
you earlier with the trim path.
Mm-hmm.
These like see the base. We have them. Let's turn that off. Yeah, the pillars is, I guess, the interesting part. But finding my
I
way through
loved
this mess.
the like on the top, on the top there's like the like you made like those pieces like become holes and they have depth on the left of the yeah, those pieces.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
I love
was
those.
like,
Me and Keith were looking at your file together when I was at his house. We were hanging out before Modem, and we were just like going through your file. And we're like, "What is this guy doing? Like, what the fuck?" We were like both like completely like, "Whoa!" It was awesome.
yeah, the thing that goes in, like the light setup that goes in there. I mean, it's not super complicated, but it's a little bit of a process to get it to work. It's just have to have the lights only touching or affecting the stuff that's in there. And I mean,
Yeah,
they're also in a cloner along a spline. You know, the process is not that magical once you figure out the
yeah, but it's just
sauce.
like the implementation was cool.
Yeah, there's like endless customizability to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think I kind of like that. But I was gonna get to the pillar. Middle hour, not the owl. Could it be this? Yeah, that's the one. It's also like, I'm also using that same. I just make a box. So turn it off. Let's see. Can we see the box somewhere?
Yeah.
Probably in the middle of everything. Perfect. No, fuck it. No, it's basically just a
I see
cube.
it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's no polygons. More, it's just one on each side. And then it's again, the poly effects is squeezing it down.
Mhm.
No extrude, it's extruding it. What you get is these like building blocks along a spline.
Mhm.
Let's see, I think I should do it, but it's definitely one of those things that I should have lifted out of the project before. I think we have it here. Perfect. I can probably see it. So there you go. It's just moving along.
Nice.
And this is
I
where
love
I'm always
the
like,
like the delay of it. Super cool.
thanks, man. This is like how I add the rotation to it. Just you add a plane. This is not. No, oh, this is rotate, right? And then basically just, I love the noise. All hell the noise.
All hell the noise.
It's the shit. You can just play around just to add randomness, or how firm you want the animation to be,
Mhm.
scale of it, speed, or if you want it to happen a lot. It's just a really almost comfortable way of working because you can always like try new designs and you know that there's always going to be ways to animate the stuff that you want to animate,
Mm-hmm.
you just do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to think about making nice keyframes or whatever. I think that's also been like it's a big difference between commercial work and the VJing, that here you can let stuff take time.
Yeah.
You can even
Yeah.
like export like, you don't even have easing on the keyframes, just because, somebody playing is going to be doing that, manually.
Mm. Interesting.
Or I guess like if the thing is going from, A to B, and, in what pace depends on the music. So that's going to depend on the person playing, how they're going to match
Mm-hmm.
that. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of understanding the again, like understanding the ins and outs of music and beats and kind of how that all kind of correlates.
Mm,
Two things I'd
definitely.
like to ask you. One is, you have these really interesting languages and kind of like interesting runes or symbols. Um, one is, where do they come from? Kind of like, how do you design them? And the second part would be like, I'd love to see some shading stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get into the shadings, but yeah, the language, or I don't know, call it light language, or this programming that's going on underneath the surface of reality is something like that. I think. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of, they just come to me. I wrote them down. Well, the process of designing them was basically I wrote them down on a notebook that's more like, I don't know if it's real parchment. Is that, yeah, that's the word, right? For the paper type, the old school paper. So I wrote them down on that, and then I took a photo, brought that into Photoshop first, just to have a little like clean up and contrasts, and then I take that image into Illustrator, which I then just image trace, and I basically get this automatically or automagically.
Automagically, for sure.
And then I bring that, and then I get the path, and I just bring the path into Cinema, and then I can extrude it in Cinema, and it still kind of gets this like rugged look in the
Mm-hmm.
edges, which I kind of like. So it gets like a little bit of a. If you look at it here, it's not so clean, but when you're far away, it just gives a little bit of texture to the actual model, so it's not too
Mm-hmm.
perfect or too clean.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it, the parchment edges when you write with even with a pretty thick pen, it gives like this, indentation. So whatever it would be called in English, imperfection. But yeah, I think I draw a lot of inspiration from. I mean, everybody knows about Alison Gray and her like
Yeah.
secret writing.
Light language. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I mean,
There's this thing about the light languages that I've had some experiences where just like I'll just like kind of sit down and like shut my eyes and then draw random shape, and then like intention, like, okay, what am I seeing? What, like, I did once, I was just like sitting by a pool in Mexico, and I just like looked at little like, objects in like my peripheral vision, and like I saw a tree, and then I was like, okay, tree, kind of like, and then looked at, and like just very intentionizing. I think that's like you can kind of get like these downloads, or like the universe kind of just like pushes things to you, you know in a very powerful way. It doesn't have to be like through some psychedelic experience. It could just be like with intention, like, I want to make a light language. I think they're just there the whole time.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I could also add, to the discussion about psychedelics. Usually when I'm more or less never when I'm working would I be under the influence, psychedelics. I don't think I would be that interested in cinema
Totally.
when I'm in that. It would be cool to experience it sometimes, or try it, but that's not the process yet, at least. But it also feels like when I'm really, when you really get into the flow states, it almost feels like channeling something.
100%. 100%.
Like you're really in
100%.
the zone, and is it even me doing? Is it even my idea? I don't know. I
Right.
wouldn't
Right.
claim it to be mine almost. Like all the pieces that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, that definitely. after the set, we'll get into like that discussion of like collective consciousness and where do ideas come from, because I think it's super interesting.
Right.
But you're on a roll here.
Jumping the gun.
Yeah, jumping the gun.
You
Sir.
said you were talking about. Thank you. Thank you very much. You were talking about or asking about shading, and definitely, because this one is a. See, I have that in the Figma prepped as well, just to show you the. I'm gonna look. I guess the animations are on the website. Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
How that is made, because that was. This one is first. It's like a. Just a plane with a displacer with animated noise on it. So it's nothing too complicated.
Nice.
Shading the noise. It's fun for days, playing, just testing all these. I do have I might be a stupid question, but it's back to my, me sucking sometimes. It's like these kind of noises, I guess, are different, like, what do you call it? Like a algorithm, right?
Totally.
There's gonna be tons of different noise algorithms, I bet. More than that I find here, I bet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that cinema has a lot. There are tons of noise algorithms. I mean, each one is kind of like a different mathematical equation to something within inside of nature, or the way that we understand patterns, and kind of like, the way that evolution or something, not evolution necessarily, but like the way like the wind moves, or the way that, tree bark grows, or like a fractalization of something. It's like mostly all mathematical equations that kind of come from some sort of simulation of nature, which is pretty crazy if you think about that. We're like using nature to animate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the one thing I like to like through all of or the podcasts I've listened to so far, or the episodes that I've listened to so far. That seems to be a common theme.
Totally.
Definitely.
Totally.
But no, so that's like the simple setup. And then let's get into
Node
the
graphs.
basic node graphs. Is so much fun. I still only get them in the material world. I'll see, once I get into node graphs when it comes to more, Houdini or Notch style, or even Touch Designer. But so this is the sort of the node tree. And what I've done here is basically just mixing a lot of different noises into a uniform noise. So you get this kind of pattern. So it's not. It just looks like a lot, but it's not. It's basically just rinse repeating a lot as well. And I'm not really, because I think that's supposed to add randomness to the randomness, because I have a noise connected to the noise.
Yeah, it's good.
And only one of the channels, just to add a little, vibration.
Definitely variation. Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing, whenever I overhear like the discussions about, how to make realistic renders, there's always like to offset tiling and textures when it comes to especially furnitures that has like a fabric, pattern on it. And like always talking about noises just to offset all the tiling and to make it more realistic. So
Right.
this kind of gave me like a curiosity for noise patterns and got me into it. So another example of, being in the commercial world for something completely different. Like, okay, this is cool. I can use this. I can use this knowledge. Yeah. But I mean, it's also like, if the scale of the project is crazy, also the scale gets a little wacky. But it's more or less just, many materials bound into one material blender, and then I'm using the same noises that I'm like seeing visually is what I'm using to blend the patterns. So how they're like getting into each other and overlay them. I'm not sure where to go with this one further because it's. I can show you another one, the recent.
Yeah.
Speaking of materials, this is also when I'm feels like the more I'm building stuff, the less I need to build new stuff all the time because I keep
That's
using
awesome.
it as a library. Yeah. And I'm gonna see if I can put it up in a more structured way so that I actually have like a model file per thing. These days I'm just hopping into an old project, grabbing it, moving it into a new thing. To keep doing that. But there's a few ways to build a library, which would be cool. Just I can drag and drop my own stuff.
I
But
love that
here we
piece.
have.
Is this new?
Yeah, this is pretty brand new.
I love it. I love
I
how
don't know if I should.
your style just like continues to evolve. It's so cool. Like it's like obviously like it's a Taolin piece, but like just your lines are different in this one. It's just like it's just interesting.
Things. Yeah, no, this one also has the ceremonies in the back, which the Solar Plaza, for example, doesn't really have yet. I think that does give a noticeable style change as well. Let's go here. Is this not the? Oh, I don't think the textures is in this one. They're not. But let's see if I can. It's a new piece. I don't know if I can talk about it yet, but I'm doing some pitching for Cinema Mystica. So that's what
Nice.
I want to. That's
Nice.
where it ends, man. Seems like I really want to visit that space. It looks really dope.
Yeah. Yeah. It's David's an awesome dude.
Yeah, it's super nice. I don't chatted with him a few times, but it's super nice. You see the use case, what it's for. So this is, let's get some more
Wow.
shading.
Sick.
Then I even need to turn on. This is also like once files start to get like way too heavy, you should just go here and you grab select children, and then I can add to a new layer because then I like, keep turning stuff off till it's render time. And then I can just turn it on. It's gonna pop up here. It's the middle piece that was missing. And then that is, yeah, you see. There's a bit of a delay.
Oh, super cool. It's like
That's, let's see.
yeah, I love it. I love the the way that you're kind of like composing your scenes. Like the way that things are composed and the way that things are kind of arranged. It's very, very interesting.
It's an evolution that happens over time. I can notice, it's getting more structured all the time and a bit more organized and sort of better. I think compositions is improving
It's a tough
from
one.
being all of the stuff everywhere, like
Yeah.
the experience can be, which doesn't really work when you're doing a render, or it could work, but it's just might just be a lot of everything. And you just want to like kind of want to bring the visions from the journeys, in a tasteful way that works in this format. Would kind of be an ad hoc thing for me, like what I'm trying to do. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, I was popping up After Effects just to see that, the shading of it.
Oh wow. Sick.
So this is going to be like this is what this one looks like, just as it is,
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that that
that's
that there's
tips
are
and
you
tricks that I
lighting
know.
your scenes? Are you lighting the scenes with like are there lights or is it just
Not a
emissive textures?
not a ton of lights. I do have like you see here. There's a few like main lights. That's like casting. You can't really see the shadows that much here, but there is some casting shadows going on.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I'm using emissive materials, and I'm like that was a thing that I was gonna get to that I just realized that I'm doing a lot. I'm using the ambient occlusion. You call it like
Mm-hmm.
in the
To get
material
like
you can use ambient occlusion.
the shadows and like a little bit of depth, I guess.
Yeah, and I can also like play with. You can reveal or mask things on 3D objects with the ambient occlusion,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So if I only
totally.
I want there to be light where it's when it's close to something, I want there to be instead of a contact shadow, give a little glow. So that's kind of what happens down here.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell
I
that
see
it's
that.
like a ambient occlusion that's giving glow instead of a shadow.
Uh-huh.
The same that's happening a lot, in between the
Interesting.
cracks in the donuts.
Interesting.
And then this is the blue light. I mean, it's just a spline. But also, yeah, there's a do that. Let's see. I'm gonna open that up. The scene that's before here. Do you see that's the wall? I have like a there's animated texture
Mm-hmm.
on top of the 3D model, just to give it, that when the journey is setting in, it's like it's little stuff moving, and then the whole wall is gonna be melting away. But then you can like these little lines I can reveal with an ambient occlusion. So I can give it glow there, but there's textures on the whole thing. But the glow
Mm-hmm.
of the texture is only in the cracks or the
Right,
crevices.
right, 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 right. Interesting. It's like a totally it's like flat shaded almost. Like Task does a lot of that, like flat shading to make things look like 2D, but you do have like a lot of ambient occlusion and like emissiveness that kind of almost makes it look like there's like directional light or some sort of light coming from somewhere. It's very interesting.
I find that's sort of how like trippy spaces are lit
Yeah.
sometimes. There is
Right.
definitely
Yeah.
like there's like an outside like a sunlight or something, but then there's also like all these lights in everywhere and it's shifting from
Totally.
2D to 3D.
Totally. Totally. Like your
Uh,
perception of like depth or your perception of like what's like you said 2D or 3D is very broken.
right, right. Yeah. And then, oh, that's the one. Wall pattern is that I was just showing you, with
Wow.
the 2D. This really is, and this one also has like an orthographic camera, more or less. I think it's actually,
Mhm.
yeah, it's actually an orthographic. So it's like flat
Nice.
on.
Mhm.
Uh, Also interesting, like what I also another thing to love about cinema is the take system. So for example, like if I want to queue it up, here's the animation take, and then I can go to the loop take. That one is just
Mm.
gonna loop, and then so that what it means is that you can set it up. I'm gonna bosh this. My colleagues is gonna laugh at this explanation, but let's see. You can basically, if you want to do multiple renders of the same thing but with different settings,
Uh-huh.
that's basically what the take system allows you to do, I
Like
guess.
it's a sequence almost that you can
Yeah,
kind of redo again and again.
yeah. So I want to do this scene, but I want to have like 10 different versions of it doing
Right, right,
different
right, right.
things.
Right. Same
I can make
pass.
a, yeah. So I could put like a plane effector that animates this thing in 15 different ways and then just export it from the same file. I don't have to make 15 scenes for it.
Right. Right, right, right. Nice. That's awesome.
But if we go in here, so it looks from the back. Right, I'm in the loop on them. this is also a place where, this is a pretty recent file. My noises, they keep getting reused in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a different setup, just to add more colors into the noise. Just use ramps as the color sources. More randomness, more stuff. And, the AO to reveal it. I think this one is the opposite that I usually do. So this one actually has shadows in the where it's supposed to be. So that would then be. See,
Super
that's
nice. And then it reveals what's behind it. I love that.
Yeah, that's the sort of the idea that it's going to be like, the reality is melting down in front of you.
Super cool. Reality's melting down in front of you.
Yeah. That's going to be a quote.
I love that. Yeah, this is
Let's see
awesome.
what else do I
Super
have.
cool to see your process.
Thanks, man. Alright, so yeah, open up this one. Yeah, the donut that I was showing you. It's just super simple shape. Got all this stuff, and that's the bevel. Then I do put a geometry tessellation just to make it smooth. It's kind of like just to make it to be able to have a donut that's actually spinning outwards or inwards. So start building it in blocks, like first one, second one, third, you get the whole pipe. And then we just bend it.
Ah, interesting. So it's not.
That's
I
when
thought
we
it would
bend
be
it.
like
Then
a
I can do
torus.
this.
I thought it was like a
Yeah,
torus
yeah.
that you just cloned on it, but you're just bending it. That's so cool.
Yeah, I figured that's 'cause I want this, the spinning animation, spinning outwards. And I wasn't like, if I'd be close, maybe I don't know if it's possible to animate along because if you would be placing these along a torus object, I don't know if you could move them around like this.
I know that in maybe it's in Notch, but I think in Blender as well you can make the torus kind of like do that effect where it's moving outwards. But
Right.
I mean, this is more effective. It looks like.
It's a way to do it in cinema. I don't know if it's actually because if I would make a torus here, there's not that kind of a setting for it. But maybe there's
There's no
a way that I
offset.
just don't know
There
about
must be
yet.
an offset of the torus. No, like that you can make it spin inside. There's no offset. Like
Not in the base.
no, huh?
Not in. There's just a slice. You can do this.
Slice.
There's not that much going of radius. Segments.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. No, you're right. There isn't anything that's like interesting. Well, cool.
Maybe there's another tool or tag or something, but yeah. Let's see.
I love this approach to kind of like modeling. Like it's because I don't know. I'm too lazy to model, but this is kind of like almost something that I would be able to get on board with. Just the way that it's like. Obviously, to think about it is the difficult part, but like, you're just taking like one shape and then you're just using it in a smart way that it's that it becomes something bigger. Like it's very interesting. Like I like this approach, like simplicity and clean. It's very clean and simple.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with it. Modeling is not the fun part, in my mind. But this way you can, this is also like if you extruding from splines, then you can go in and add the cap. You can model the cap. That's how it gets the plus sign. So, so yeah.
Oh yeah, wow.
Am I in the right? Maybe I'm in the wrong. Oh wait, I'm gonna turn that off. So it's 0.
And you have an emissive texture inside, huh? Emissive
yeah, and I actually have
inside.
Exactly. I have a cylinder that's just lighting the whole thing up from the inside. That's also pushing the lights.
That's cool. Cool.
Kind of want it to feel like these. I don't know what these are. Reality generators or something.
Yeah. Torus field. Plus.
Go. Maybe I should make a opposite one, a minus one as well.
Yeah.
I did. The duality of life. What a thing.
What a thing. Totally.
Um, and yeah, no, it's the light, the shading stuff is nothing too complicated on this one. It's, the same process, different ambient occlusions, different ways to like limit it. You see different ambient occlusions. One different one goes to the emission one to give it a, yes, maybe less, yeah, like less light. So I think that usually how I go about material, like putting materials on my pieces. Another thing that is pretty interesting with deformers, I think is the, let's see, the dragon one.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon is not really the interesting part, I think. It's more of the like, because when I was making it, I had issues because I was trying to use the what's it called? Just a deformer, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Displacer one, just to give it like this, wobbly thing on the tail,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not letting me do that really. And I was talking to a colleague, and it, like, you can do your own deformers, sort of use a mesh deformer. So what I did was I used like physics to simulate just what do you call it, the bones.
Mm-hmm.
So you use just the wind just to get the bones moving, and then I can map.
Oh,
Oh yeah, and then I mapped that to the box, and then I used the box to deform the dragon itself.
interesting. That's cool. I like
It
that.
was kind of because it's doesn't need to be actually moving; it's just still,
Right, right. But you're using like wind to actually get like a more organic feel.
Yeah, it looks like it's moving through something.
Super cool.
But it was also like an easier way to use the like skeleton system than actually rigging the whole thing,
Animating it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be cool, but yeah,
Well, I
it
mean,
would take
once you
time.
have a skeleton, you can bring it into like you just did. You have physics, you have wind, so as long as it's
Hmm.
connected to, the actual geometry, it should technically just move, you can add different physics stuff to it now, right? I mean, like you can move it through heavier wind or less wind. Like once you have it rigged, you
Exactly.
can kind of do anything.
Exactly. And then you can just cache it, and then you have it, and it's gonna be there. It's not gonna
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
At least not likely.
Interesting. So
So
it's deforming the actual meshes. That's so cool.
it's basically just this is the
Question
same with the
though,
pillar from the yeah.
why wouldn't you instead of meshing like this blocky mesh, or sorry, instead of rigging this blocky mesh, why wouldn't you just rig the pieces themselves?
Like rig the tail with the
Yeah.
bones, for example.
Yeah.
Uh, Good
It
question.
would
I
be
think this was just
it
a
would be the same effect, I
simple way
think, no?
to. Yeah, it would be the same effect. I think it's mainly. I don't know if I could see this in real time within cinema,
Right.
like if
It's
it
too
wasn't the
heavy.
simple box. And so this thing is built the same way as the pillars in the modem stage, for example.
Mhm.
So it's like a
Mhm.
spline that has these cloners going along it.
You'd have to bake it into like a proper geometry.
Yeah, and if I have to bake it into an alembic, I think that was like the reason I didn't do that was because then it's like one alembic, the whole thing, the whole
Right.
tail is one
Right,
thing,
right,
and
right.
then
And
I
this
wouldn't be able
way,
to materialize like each
gotcha.
block individually.
Gotcha. And
I
this way you
think
can kind of like have your procedural animation and like thing, but still get like the motion of it being one piece. Interesting.
maybe it could be done if I would do like three separate alembics, like each layer of the box
Each
on the
layer,
tail
yeah. But then
would be its
you're
own
gonna.
alembic.
It's hard.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know if you can rig. Can you rig an alembic to a skeleton? I don't think you can.
not sure, not
I
sure.
don't think you
That's
can. I
this is
think you'd
right.
have to. But there must be a way to rig a skeleton to, like, meshes that are deforming. Like, there's definitely a way to do that. I wonder.
Definitely, definitely. there's gotta be, this was just, probably this was the
Fast.
way my thought process was going. And then it was like, I need this to be fast, not
Yeah,
too like technical.
that makes sense. Yeah,
And
makes
then
sense.
I was like, this is gonna work. Um, so, yeah, so if you have anybody out there has like a super complex object that needs to be deformed, use the mesh deformer.
It's good advice.
Could be, maybe. Don't take my word for it. Let's see, what else could I... Let's get into this one. I don't know if this is on the website. It might
Damn.
not be. Oh, it's this one, the sun pattern one.
Damn. Isn't that the one you showed us
That's how it
before with the
looks.
lines?
No, yeah, no, it's not. Just similar in style. I don't think this one is on the modem stage as well. If that's what you, because you have seen it in that sense.
Yeah, I've seen it for sure.
Like this, there's like a specific piece of it that's on the
Uh-huh.
modem stage as well.
Gotcha. Super cool.
It's also like, it's, I make one thing and I put it in a cloner. In this case, it's multiple things that I duplicated to make it like, I don't know, this alien chip or something like that. Which is also from this is originally made for the Inner Sanctum that I made like a year before this one. So it's funny, I bring it in, I repurpose, like kind of squeeze it down. It was a lot thicker. It's like you reuse the pattern, which I basically just drew out in cinema using splines. This one I didn't use. No, I didn't use Illustrator, I think. I just keep building on it. And also, just to make it feasible to look at when you want to animate, just
Wow.
put a box in the system.
Are those are lights moving around? Yeah, those are like area lights.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, choppy, but shouldn't be. Guess they might not have the.
Ah, we're doing a lot of things at once.
There we go. There we go. There's actually they have the smooth rotation. I don't know why it has a like unsmooth rotation and a smooth rotation, but it's also animated with the up and down goes first there's like a thing that makes it go every second goes up and every second goes down. Some here should be somewhere. So there we go. There's the up and down motion.
Nice.
I guess there's some sort of formula for that I can't remember how. Yeah.
Oh, nice expression. It's cool.
It's not my expression though, for sure. But it's also cool, they had the formula. I mean, if you're into math and stuff, I mean, this is wow. You could probably do
Lame. Nerd alert.
Nerd alert. Respect to the nerds, man.
That's true.
Nerd
That's true.
shit.
They are.
But I get you. I hear you. That's like the stuff that I had. This could be fun. I have done. This is like the only character animation I've ever done. I did a few arms.
Whoa. That's your kind of it's your guy. It's your dude with a hat. What's his name?
Are you
You
talking
know,
about Duncan Trussell's show, Midnight Gospel?
no, your guy with the hat. He's got like uh, it's like a head thing, like a, you know what I'm talking about. The
I was gonna say Gandalf.
no. You know, he's got like two eyes and a hat, and he's like a blocky head, and he comes out sometimes. You don't know what I'm talking about?
Like from a show, or it's from
No, it's from your
stuff something I
animation.
made.
It's something you made.
Oh
Let me
shit!
find it.
Which guy? Which dude?
Here, this guy.
Ah, you mean this guy?
Yeah, that guy.
Ah, yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it's actually from. Yeah. Oh, hold on. The cosmic dude.
The cosmic dude.
I got it. I'm getting to him.
What's his name? Yeah. Oh
Uh,
wow. This
it's
this
open for suggestion.
okay. Over suggestion. I like Blocky Man. Block Man.
Yeah.
Heart Man. Oh, he's a heart man. I didn't even
Oh,
notice that he has a heart there. Look at that. But sorry, you were showing the rigging of the hands. I'm sorry, I totally jumped the gun.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nothing complicated. It's just, and it's also because the fingers is not really like organic, so it's more blocky, robotic,
Oh, but
which
there you go.
makes hand animation.
That's a skeleton with the procedural pieces, right?
Yeah, the only thing that is missing here is the spline that would be driving them in a direction.
You're placing them. You just place them in space.
Yeah, so here in the hand, they're actually just, let's see, I can't even remember now. So I think that's the hand, the base, thumb, it has a clone, oh right, it has a cloner. Oh, it's multiple cloners, right? Yeah, that's,
Mhm.
yeah, it's built in like in pieces or whatever it's
Mhm.
like. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's how they rotate individually
Nice.
still.
So it's not
So
weight
yeah.
painted. It's not weight painting, right?
I think
what
the
is it?
arm has a little bit of that. There's, I think it has a little bit of weight painting, if I remember correctly. But there's not a lot of that.
They're just like tied. Their origins are tied to it. The
Yeah,
bones.
exactly. Yeah, that's how they're grouped. Yeah.
Cool.
So, it's a lot of fun. It's a mad respect for the people animating characters out there because
Oh
they're
yeah,
doing it. Like
serious.
just me doing this arm was like it was a lot of fun, but a lot of work as well. So I just imagine doing like a whole Transformers dude walking around. It's gonna be insane.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, and also I mean this guy sort of comes from a sweat lodge
Mm.
experience. Like everybody's like sort of sitting down, hunkering down, like in their own universes.
Mhm.
Sort of where it comes from, but then it turned into this like cosmic guy. That's a lot of cloners and ooh,
Wow.
oh shit, my scroll got stuck.
I hate when
There
that
we go.
happens.
Yeah, it's like come on, you're asking, but it's not going out. It's quite
I forgot to
interesting.
use my
Cloners.
Ooh yeah.
I forgot to use it. We've said cloners so many times. I forgot to use
I was giving it to you for free, man. Come on.
it.
I think that's. Let's see, do I have anything? That's what about. No, this is just another like reusing.
Whoa.
I'm planning on putting this into the thing that I showed in After Effects.
Mhm.
This is gonna go in there somehow
Nice. Hell yeah.
if it fits, but some sort of pillar structure.
Totem.
You know, yeah, totem. Let's
Ooh.
go up. Yes, yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes. Only yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I
yes,
love
yes,
that.
yes,
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it because like
Mm.
also this kind of like creates a style for yourself and like a recognizable thing, which is something that like personally I took me a very long time to figure out for myself, and I'm still like don't really know my style is. Now I'm trying to like do it with the Merkabas, like that the Merkabas are kind of like the style, but I just like this
Mm.
kind of like you're reusing different textures and different themes. I think it's a really good way to build like a recognizable thing.
Yeah, it kind of keeps you within your own realm, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like building
yeah,
my own universe. If the end goal would be cool to, I don't know, build something like microdose VR, like stuff that Android Jones is putting
sure,
together.
sure.
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, I've never seen it more than I know about it, but looks super cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, I've seen it live a few times. It's very cool.
Um, so I don't know how much time do we have left on the.
I mean, we're running pretty good. I would say like, if you want to show one more thing, and then we can shift off into discussion land. Yeah, we've been
Yeah,
going a while.
I could show the. Oh yeah, I was talking about when I'm putting out something in the early stages and it's like going really fast because I haven't kept doing play blast or hardware renders.
Mm-hmm.
So how things can look in like the early stages. And this is
Whoa,
sort of there because it's like, I mean, this is all fine, but yeah, you see the underlying things,
you
the
kind of miss it.
boxes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
this is
like
super cool,
now you
dude.
see it's
It's cool as fuck.
it's just the animation of the floor, like the stuff that's underneath. It's like the boxes is going like almost choppy. I would like it to be more smooth, calm, collected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like a
I love
early
this.
design process. Also, it's interesting. This is for the Cinema Mystica thing.
Super cool. It's gonna be interactive or like, or just like a animation,
From what I understand, it's the interactivity that this room has is like it senses when there's somebody in the room.
and just plays.
If there's any, yeah. So I could like if it has like a looping idle mode,
Mm-hmm.
and then once somebody comes in, it's like okay, there's somebody here. Now we queue up
Got you.
different animations,
I mean,
for
I would
example.
love to. This I could easily make this into, like a floor,
That
interactivity, like wall. Like as you move, the floor moves, and as you go with your hands on the wall,
that
it'd
would
be
be so
super
dope.
cool.
That's yeah, that's kind of the place where I want to get to, like
Yeah,
where I see my end goal, but it's part of the process.
yeah. Well, let me know.
Speaking of the floor, oh yeah, for sure.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember I was like texting you about touch designer courses and
I
stuff like that,
remember.
and
Yeah, I remember.
I actually got because I was using it for a glitch thing. I
Nice.
think I have it on my portfolio as well. It was for like a fashion show. I was getting like the 3D renders from the team, and then I was putting more custom glitch. There's some
Right.
good plugins for After Effects, but like getting into Touch Designer, like, it definitely looks not out of the box, sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's also like in Touch Designer, you can experiment with it and play with it. You're not gonna just get like the same thing every time.
Yeah, exactly. That was
You'll get
also
like
like the
some.
frustrating thing because I saw a cool thing and then like, oh, I can't, I couldn't
Ah, you
redo
can't
it.
figure out how to do it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
That's true. That is
yeah.
frustrating.
Um,
Super cool.
it's super, yeah.
Well,
Touch Design is
awesome,
a
dude.
different beast, but it's a super potent.
Um, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for showing us all this stuff. Oh wow, what was that? What was that? Last one, last one. What was that? Nice.
Just the pillar thing showed you earlier. Like this
Yeah,
is so uh,
super cool.
could be a place where I'm gonna take that later on.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, there's also these a lot of new motion graphics tools in Unreal that you could definitely apply like tons of this stuff to. Um,
Yeah.
Still pretty rudimentary, to be honest. Like you can't clone a cloner, for instance, which is kind of stupid. But like
And
um, if you have like the base elements of stuff, then you can definitely put them in there. Yeah, you can't clone a cloner. Like, what the fuck? It's like the first thing of like motion graphics is to make
Yeah.
something small in a cloner and then make something that
Mhm.
clones that thing and then clone that thing, and
Yeah.
that's how you do procedural animation. Like, without that, you're just stuck in a very basic place. But
Mhm.
it will get there. It will get there. They'll obviously figure that out. They're very smart there.
Yeah, and it
Anyway,
was interesting because I
yeah,
wonder. I don't know how Unreal plays with what's it called, USD format.
it works very
It's called
well.
USD.
Yeah, works very well with it. Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing that I would like to look at, how to export my 3D animations into a USD. That's I could bring into Unreal, for example.
100%. And just like, light it in Unreal. You could play with the lighting and have more like, different lighting scenarios that you can cut between. Maybe even if you do it in a smart way, I guess you could have like control over playback of animations, and then you can make it more procedural. But yeah, I mean, the problem is that once you're bringing in meshes or like USD or Alembic, you're losing a little bit of the generative stuff, right? You're still rendering real time, which is very beneficial. You can like, play with
Mhm.
lighting and camera, and like you get a lot of like play with it, but you're losing the generative aspect of like, okay, now I'm like pushing movement from noise and it's always different, always changing. That's like where I love is like where things are generative, because then it's like anytime you press play, you're getting something different, right? Like,
Mm.
and it could be as simple as like just the lights, their circular movement is generative and it moves a little bit as it's going, so that you're getting a different lighting source every time. um, but it's even more powerful when like the pieces that you're affecting, whether they're going in and out or getting bigger or smaller or going away, is also generative. That's like where it's like, I think, the cream. But first step is definitely, yeah, USD into Unreal is very easy. Cinema into Unreal is easy.
Yeah.
You have a whole pipeline. Datasmith is like, it's built in. It's super, super straightforward. You can literally merge a whole scene, textures, lights, cameras into Unreal, and
Sure.
then relight and retexture. Yeah.
Do you know, does that work with even if I bring like redshift materials
No,
into?
no, no,
Yeah,
no.
fuck.
Sorry. That wouldn't work. But you would
Yes.
easily be able to learn like Unreal shading in like less
Mm.
than a week. Like, no joke. Like, especially like the style that you're going for, which is kind of like this subsurface, like very specific like kind of look. You could learn it super fast. And the beauty of Unreal in real time is that I mean, you know this, but once you build it once, you can reuse it a million times. But like times 1,000 in like an Unreal space where it's like generative and procedural in that kind of just built in that way. Yeah.
I mean, I never tried it, but do you also map like because you map your MIDI controllers directly in Unreal, right?
I do everything in Touch Designer,
Or
so I'll do all my logic
yeah.
and like all my movement, all my controls, buttons, knobs. I'll do everything in Touch Designer so that I have like more control over like animation. If I want to like make a button, make an animation, or if I want to like do procedural movement, I'll do it all in Touch Designer. I'll send it all to Unreal through OSC.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
So that gives me like
Wow.
more, because like making I don't know why that light is flashing, but making procedural animation in Unreal is like kind of, it's possible. It's not as possible. It's a very big part of Unreal, but it's made for like game, like controlling a character. And I want my character just move around like freely and be in like a space, right? So you can make like random noise and you can make like, different ways of doing that, but it's not as controllable as it is in Touch Designer. In Touch Designer, I can literally like, manipulate my noise very fast and very easily. So, and also I can switch between different types of like, if I want to have like a pattern, or if I want to have a noise, or if I want to have like a touchpad, or if I want to have an LFO, or et cetera, et cetera. It's just easier to switch it in Touch Designer and just send those out as locations, as a vector, like XYZ, rotation XYZ. For me, it's
Right.
easier. I'm sure if you weren't using Touch Designer, then it wouldn't be easier. But for me, it's easier.
Sure.
One second, that light is gonna drive me crazy.
I'm loving it. You're full RGB.
Um, so yeah, I mean, thank you so much for showing us into the Taolin universe and kind of getting us acquainted with your workflows and kind of the way that you animate and shade and just approach 3D. I mean, it's very fascinating, and we don't really get a chance to do it a lot on the podcast. It's a lot of real time, a lot of generative. So whenever I get like a proper animator, I'm super excited to see how they're doing things, and the seeing the render obviously is like a big thing. Like, look how beautiful, but seeing how the render made, I think, is very, very interesting. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I hope people are gonna find use for it and find some tips and tricks in it.
I feel inspired,
Yes.
so I'm sure other people will as
So,
well.
it's fun to
How are you?
share. I think.
It's sorry, what?
But, no, just it's just fun to share. You go ahead.
Totally. How are you feeling with time? Are you tired? It's like late by you, right?
Not too
No, you're
bad.
good. Okay, you're a night owl.
It's 11 o'clock, but yeah, I'm a night owl, and I remember this is gonna bite me in the ass. I remember we talked early in the podcast when you started, and it's like, oh, I love it. Give me more than 3 hours, and here I'm sitting.
Hell yeah. So yeah, coming from your world and kind of the Taolin world, what do you think about other worlds? What do you think about kind of like the idea of multi dimensions and kind of like the quantum space? Obviously I'm not a scientist, but like just on a general level, quantum theory, like um, multiple realities existing in one, kind of like entanglement, something very, very far away, millions of light years away, can be a particle millions of light years away, can be connected to a particle here, and I don't know, like stuff that's very hard to contemplate and understand. But then you can say something like multi dimensions, which is kind of easy for us to understand, right? Or like or easy for us to understand. But what do what is your kind of ethos, and where does it kind of connect to your artwork and the way that you view reality?
Wow. No, I think there's definitely something out there's something out there. It's like a typical Swede. Um, how would I how do I relate that to my work? Uh, shit, I think I'm drawing a blank on this one. Well, I mean, I think it's all through my work that
Mm-hmm.
there is some form, whatever is out there, if it's,
Mm-hmm.
some form of quantum entanglement, or, I mean, I know way too little about the science of that,
Mm-hmm.
or actually even try to understand too little of it. But multi-dimensional realities would be like definitely, what do you say? I don't know, believe it would be the
Mm-hmm.
word. I
Mm-hmm.
can't prove it or show it to anybody, but I can believe
Right.
it.
Right.
And uh, yeah, what was the question again?
Well, how do you view it, and kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, how does it meet you in your day to day, or kind of like not even your day to day, just in like your your moment to moment, if at all.
So, well, so sort of what I was talking about, the process of creation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I feel it the most, or notice it the most, or it's most clear to me, like that there's like the channeling aspect of creating. Like
Mm.
showing a nice render is fun, but actually sitting down, it could take hours to complete something. That's like the fun part, actually sitting down and not dependent on the software or if it's a brush or digital, but just sitting down and creating and
Mm-hmm.
getting into that flow state. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
flow state would be like also like a bit of a, what do you call, it's like a hype word, or what do you call it, like it's
Hyper realistic. Oh,
no, like a
oh, yeah, yeah,
hype
yeah, it's like,
word, like
yeah, yeah, it's like a like whatever thing.
you know yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
this thing that everybody's the flow state, everybody's talking about it, but
Right,
what is
right,
it?
right,
And
right,
it's,
right, right.
like when you're in it, you can really feel it and you know it, and it's like this clear connection,
To something.
which is just it's addictive.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned
almost
it
like,
before, like, sometimes you feel like you're not like creating something and something's being created. Like, yeah, how do you express that? How do you explain that? Like, what does that even mean to you?
yeah, yeah. And is it even mine? It's like the
Right.
art that I'm making. I feel more like a tool
Mm-hmm.
that's making the art
Yeah.
than, it's me, not me coming up with the idea for the art piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if it comes from the higher self or the higher collective self, I'm not sure. Maybe we're borrowing ideas from each other. Maybe there's like
Mm.
a common pool where we're all like dipping our toes or putting our hands down and like, oh, what is this? Kind of like do you know the manatees episode of Family Guy?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it's something like that. We're picking out an idea and it's like, oh wow, this is cool.
Isn't that South Park?
It's oh shit, yeah, it's
South
South
Park,
Park
yeah.
making fun of Family Guy.
Yeah, it's South Park
That's the
making
one.
fun of
That's
Family Guy. That's the Family Guy episode of South Park. Like, how does Family Guy? How
yeah,
is
yeah,
Family Guy
yeah.
written? Just a bunch of manatees picking out balls. Like, yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Always goes back to South Park. Um,
Totally, South Park is life. Um,
oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, we can't prove it, obviously, right? It's like impossible to prove, and like, it's kind of like that's almost the point in some way, is that you can't prove it. But like, what is yeah, what does it mean to you besides and further than just like what we're talking about, like, okay, flow state, okay, collective consciousness, okay, you know expression and art, like, is it even something that's like obvious to you on a day to day, or is it just something that kind of just is like kind of passing by? Because I don't think about these things on a day to day, and I don't really get to be creative so much. Well, I shouldn't say that. I get to be creative all the time, but I don't really get to sit down and make art on a day to day. Most of my work is problem solving, systems, building systems, UIs, and kind of like, yeah, I'm being creative, obviously, and I'm in a flow state a lot of the time, but I'm not like thinking of like, where am I pulling my inspiration from the different universe, and like, how am I collectively consciousness, how is the collective consciousness affecting my art? Um, so is it something that you kind of like think about on a day to day? Like, is it something that like follows you throughout things?
Yes and no, I'd say.
Mm.
It's a yes and no one. I can't, I'm not like, of course, I'm not continuously thinking about it, but it's like it might hit my mind when I see like a random thing that like I feel like, oh, it's all, I might see something and you just connect it to like, oh, we are
Something
all
else.
connected. You see, like
Mm.
it becomes a sign for you because it's making sense for me, but and I think this happens to everybody in different
Mm.
ways. That
Totally.
something that makes sense for you, you get like sort of signs.
Mm.
But I don't put too much. Like I also kind of let it go or pass me
Right.
by
Right.
because I don't want to be. I can be spiritual all the time, but I don't want to be like in that state of mind all
Well,
the time.
yeah, you don't want to be overwhelmed by it, right? You don't want to be overwhelmed by your, excuse me, by your belief system. That's kind of what we were talking about before. A
Mm.
container, but not containment, or a container that you're not contained in. I think that's important.
Um,
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I feel like
but
it's
it's
just like,
also
please, please, please.
yeah, no, this is just this thing that like it was sort of emphasized during my ceremonies that I did. Like it's fairly recent, but it was like you do those, and then it's also like chop the wood, carry the water,
Right.
do the normal things, and do
Right.
those with what we were talking about, gratitude, and
Mm.
just that's I guess that's the difficult part of the ceremony, or the hard part.
Mm.
You get back and you're like, come on, just keep chugging it, keep going,
Yeah.
and do that with trying to keep the grace and the gratefulness and all that. In that sense, I
Right.
try to, but that's I'm saying it now, but I'm not, and I try to practice that, but it's
Of
it's hard.
course. Well, of
It's
course. In
life.
reality, it's much, much more. Yeah, life is difficult, but I think it's like what you're saying. It's like that lesson of like the monotonous or the hard parts of life. Being grateful for those parts is almost in a way to get through those parts, or in a way to like have those parts be like good, or not good, but like those parts be easier, like it's kind of like the idea of like perspective, like and I'm saying this in like a kind of like hypey, also kind of like way, like wokey kind of way, but like if you think positive about things, then the things that are difficult might not be so difficult, right? Like there's still going to be difficulties in life. Life is hard. But if you focus on the appreciation aspect and you focus on like the maybe, okay, this is a really hard part of life, but I'm going to grow from it, then maybe that hard part will be a little bit easier, and it's always easier said than done, right? It's always like when you're feeling like an angel in a ceremony and God is holding you and you're crying and the angels are caressing you, everything's good. But then when you wake up in the morning and it's fucking you're tired and you have to go to work, where are the angels?
I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and
Yeah.
can you get up, do the work, and then also be hungry at the same time and being graceful about it? I don't know. It's fucking hard, but let's try.
Let's try. Another thing that a teacher from ceremonies, Frida Tish, always told me was like, or always told us was like, the ceremony is now, right? It's like you're in the moment, you're there, but like a really important part of life is to like be able to recall the altar. It was about the altar. It was specifically about the altar. Like the altar, you're like, I'm here in front of the altar right now. But when I go home, I don't have this altar. I have my own altar, but I don't have this ceremony altar, right? With all the beautiful wachumas and all the beautiful stuff around it and the way it's positioned. But I can recall it and I can think about it in my mind's eye. And when I do, then I'm back in that place. So it's like me participating in this ceremony, me interfacing and with this altar right now is timeless. It's in the future, it's in the past, it's not now, it's everywhere. So like in the future, when I think about it, I'm actually there in the ceremony now. When I was in there now. When I was in there then.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like it's like that's like almost the quantum part of it, of like, yeah, like okay, I'm having a hard time or I want to like elevate something. Okay, let me just think about that moment that I was there in front of that altar and the way that it made me feel. Now I'm actually there. Now when I was there, I was actually here, and like vice versa, So I feel like that and that can also be like lowered to like a less like kooky kind of spiritual thing of just like your perspective of something. Kind of like what I just said before of like, okay, I'm positive, even though it's negative. Now that negative now becomes positive. You're transmuting it in some way. Could even be like, I have a lot of anger, that I deal with a lot. Like anger is kind of like my growth thing in this life. And like my anger comes from a place of sadness. And like, what do I do with my anger? Because it's not something that I shouldn't bottle it up. I shouldn't like let it just fester. It needs to be released, right? So, okay, I can punch a wall, or I can, God forbid, hit somebody or hurt somebody or yell at somebody, right? But that's going to hurt me, or it's going to hurt the person, or it's going to hurt me because I'm hurting the person. So how do I release it? Okay, so I've learned that it comes from a place of sadness. So maybe a really good thing to do if I'm angry is to cry, right? Maybe a really good thing to do when I'm angry is to focus and make art, go to the computer and bang the keyboard or whatever, like how do you transmute it without releasing it? So it's like, okay, I'm going through a hard time right now. How can I look at it in a positive way? Not because I don't want to focus that I'm going through a hard time, but because I want to transmute that thing into like a different thing.
Yeah, that's the thing that you're trying to do, right? You don't want to like not look at the bad stuff or the difficult parts, but just how do you look at the bad stuff or the difficult parts?
Yes,
definitely.
Yes.
And I feel like isn't this? I don't know if you're into Bashar and all that.
A little bit. I don't follow him fully, but I get the what is it called? Not transmuting. It's called not telepathy. Channeling.
The channel, right? Yeah, and I just feel when you're talking about your you're always here. Wherever you are, you're always here,
Mm-hmm.
here and now, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That old good old quote.
Yeah.
Um, and thank you for reminding also about that, because I heard something similar along the similar lines of the altar and like going back to it. But that one has kind of slipped my mind since I was there.
Yeah. 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 You're
And I
welcome.
feel like that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, right? We're reminding each other along the journey. It's like, hey, did you
Totally.
remember the thing? The thing, this altar thing? You remember? Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah. For
We've
sure.
all been there.
I feel like it even goes
But I don't
back
know
to
how.
like. No, please.
Yeah, you were talking about transmuting the
Mm.
like
Emotions.
the yeah, and I'm not really sure how to approach that, or like if I have any advice on how to do that. But it's like feels like it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't on my part.
Same. Same. You know, and
There's no
it's
system
tough
yet.
because you know what you're doing is wrong, but you can't control it. Like, especially with an emotion that's so disruptive like anger, it's like it's very difficult to. This is something that like I struggle with my whole not my whole life, but like at least in my adulthood when I've been aware of it, is like how in the moment of me being angry do you transmute it, right? Because like cerebrally and logically I understand that's the right thing to do, but when you're seeing red or your blood is excessive, it's hard to be like not throw something or get upset, and like
Mm.
there's so many different techniques like in modern psychology, and kind of like punch a pillow or squeeze a ball or yell into a pillow, and like sometimes that helps, sometimes that does help, like maybe if you're so in a state, like yelling into a pillow actually does help, like yelling does help, like because it does express outwards. But I feel like it could be dangerous because what if you don't have a pillow and you just yell in somebody's face? Then you're hurting them, right? What if you don't have a pillow and you punch somebody instead of punching the pillow? It's not necessarily like a good. It's not good or bad, but it's not necessarily like a. It's not transmuting. I would call that like more of like
It's
releasing. It's release, right? Because it's positive because you're releasing and you're not releasing it on somebody, so you're not hurting somebody and you're not hurting yourself by punching a wall or by yelling at into somebody's face. So definitely positive. But I feel like the alchemy, or like where we want to get to, like the point of like transcending our human emotions, because like we're much more than our human emotions, right? Like as like godly beings, or as like um you know um uh higher conscious beings, our emotions are like very um like physical, like 3D, right? And we're like 4D beings, and like the emotions are like a very 3D thing. Yes, they're expressed in like our consciousness and like our higher being, but the actual mechanism is very chemical. It's very 3D. It's not consciousness or heightened consciousness, which is why if you think about like a monk, right, or somebody who's like a higher dimensional being, their emotions are very baseline, right? Like, yeah, they can be happy, yeah, they can be sad, yeah, they can be angry, but like it's almost all the same. You know what I mean? Like it's all transmuted in a very like ethereal way, right? Like
mm,
I think that that's kind of almost the point, or maybe like that's kind of like the goal. Um,
mm,
but yeah, dude, I mean, like it's super hard to
definitely.
like understand it and do it in the same time, for sure.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like you said, like the pillow or whatever you're using as the. I mean, it's a step in the right direction if as long as we're not hurting others,
Or
or to the
yourself.
lesser degree at least, and then or yourself. Um, but the pillow is almost like a band-aid in this case.
Totally.
Like you're not you're
Totally.
not you're not going to the source, but at least a band-aid is better than
Then
bleeding out.
bleeding out. Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean
the
there's
top five,
different
I
there's
guess.
different ways to transmute, I feel like it really is like an alchemy. Like you have to like really, it's super
Mm,
subjective, I think, as well. Um I wish I spent more time on it. You know, it's so like life is just like so. There's so much stuff in life. You kind of like start a path of like trying to figure something out, and then you kind of like move on to something else and kind of forget it. But
Yeah, and I mean, we
one thing
kind of
that
come from, we have our, like, the parents, and then we're the society, and there's
just
so
gonna
many
say
things influencing us on the journey. It's like, yeah, how do we make
how,
sense of
yeah,
this?
yeah. I think a lot of it comes
Think.
from like, you know, and trauma is also one of those words that's like thrown around, but like I feel like a lot of it comes from trauma, because and I'm seeing this a lot with my kid, you know, and having a kid and seeing him grow is so like teaching. Like it's so like you just see these like little things, you're like, oh, I got fucked up at that moment, you know, and like that's why I do that thing. But it's like I feel like the trauma in a way is like kind of it stops you from being able to transmute, because it just teaches you certain things. So like as an example, not necessarily from my life, but just in general as an example, maybe as a kid, you know, you tried to say something and you didn't get an answer. So now inside of you, that saying something doesn't help, doesn't do anything. But it could be that saying something is exactly what you need to transmute that energy, right? It's like a very basic example.
Right.
Like I'm trying to think of something from my experience that I can use an example without, you know, without being too crazy, but like
Experience from an inner child,
what was that?
like an experience from the inner child. It would be
Totally. That also super helpful. Have you ever done reparenting like stuff? Have you ever heard of reparenting?
when you work with your. I haven't heard about that, but is that when you work with your inner child, or like,
Yeah, it's kind of
or
like
what do
it's
you?
almost like a time travel thing where you kind of like go back to your like you're in here now, but you are kind of transported to when you were a child in a moment, and you give yourself a hug, or you tell yourself like, "Hey, it's okay," or whatever, and then you're kind of like changing the past, right? Because what is the past? The past all exists in your psyche, right? Like if time is
It's all
linear,
here and
then it's
now.
everything's here and now. But if you're looking at memories and past, it's all in your mind, right? Because it doesn't exist otherwise. So by doing that, you're kind of like fixing moments, and that's been very helpful as well to like heal like you know, childhood traumas, or like just even not even childhood traumas, just like, you know, moments that could be triggering, or, you know, catalysts for things. But yeah, I'm just trying to think of like you know, something. I guess I gave a good example, I guess, with the you know, your dad yelled at you at some moment, and really that moment you were just trying to express yourself. Oh, I remember what I want to say. Like tying it into having a child and like this kind of like 1.5-year-old. So when he gets upset, he just yells and screams and cries, right? Because and when we get upset, there's so many things that we could do to like deal with that. I can go for a run. I can smoke weed, or, you know, I can listen to music. There's so many things that I could do to transmute my frustration positively and like in a good way. And obviously some of those examples are positive, some of those examples are maybe more negative, but like either way,
Sure.
I have ways to deal with it. And he does it. He only knows to like yell and scream. Now, if he's yelling and screaming and I say to him, stop yelling and screaming, I'm teaching him to suppress something that he's trying to express. So now when he's, and like, I'm not like judging anybody of how they parent. I'm just saying like how I want to parent and how I wasn't parented, or most of us weren't parented, right? Of like, he's just trying to either say something, feel something, express something, and his only way of doing it is by yelling and screaming. And if I just let him yell and scream, then as he's getting older and he starts to understand how to do different things, he can for himself figure out how to do things. But if I suppress that, then that's going to be his learned thing, right?
Right.
So in a way,
Right.
that's kind of like, why is it hard for us to transmute things? Maybe because as children, we were told to not do the thing that we didn't have a chance to like invent that pathway in our mind. The pathway was, don't do that thing. That thing is bad.
Yeah. Mhm. yeah, I mean, I feel there's like so much programming that comes along with the, I mean, intentional and definitely most likely unintentional, I think, from parents. Because I
Totally
think
unintentional.
we all
Dude, there's
do
nothing
things, from
harder.
the best of intentions. So what do
There's
you
nothing
say?
harder than holding your child, putting him to sleep, and him not stopping to cry. And all you want to do is like shut the fuck up, you know? And like sometimes it slips out. Sometimes it's like, please stop, please stop. And it's like, I remind myself like I can't do that because he needs to do this right now. And like by me saying please stop, I might be programming him to not do this thing. It's so difficult. But I think there's a difference between being aware of it and not being aware of it.
Right. Yeah. No, I can't imagine that. But yeah, no, definitely. It is a difference, right? But I think that's what ceremonies is sort of about, right? Is to break this programming that we come from. Because it's so,
100%.
since it's unintentional and unawareness from parents or children alike, so we all sort of need it to break it. Or it's one of the tools, one of the hammers that you can use to break that past.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny that you make, because the teacher that I had, or that I have, we were talking about doing the meeting your child, the inner child, or
It's very
what is it,
good.
reparenting.
Reparenting. I think that's
Said,
like maybe
right?
the more Western way of saying it. But yeah, you know, it's a little bit foo-foo, like time travel kind of stuff, but like in the moment it feels great. You know, you it's very heavy. Like you kind of like are very heavy, and it's not like you know, thank God I never was trauma. Like I didn't, you know, nothing bad ever happened to me as a kid. But again, like a parent saying stop or a parent yelling at you could literally be something that sticks with you for your whole life. And that's not to say that I'm never going to yell at my kid. It's impossible not to, but it's like maybe if I'm aware of it, then maybe after I yell at him, I could be like, hey, I'm sorry for yelling at you before. And maybe that will help him later on in his life, right?
Right.
Just one
And I think
thing that you
once
said.
I mean, this is,
No, you go.
sorry. Yeah, no, but this, the one
I'll
more
talk
thing
about it.
about that is that I thought about was, it's just, it feels kind of sucky to say it, but it's like when you grow up and once you get like to adult life, I kind of realized that it's sort of my responsibility to start working through this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
That's the
because
point of
it's
being
like,
here, no?
yeah, because you can't, I don't think there's like a childhood without trauma in
No.
some degree. Like,
Birth
you
is
can't be without
traumatic,
it.
right?
Yeah, right.
Stopping to
say.
breastfeed is super traumatic. I can't even, like, you know, like the frustration in Lev, my son's, like being when he stopped breastfeeding was like insane. Like banging his head, like tantrum, because all he knows is the booby and the comfort that brings, and all of a sudden, it's not happening anymore. So it's like that is traumatic, you know, like that's like, and
Yeah,
it's like
what
something
the
that everybody
fuck?
has to go through, you know, everybody has to go through it. It's like, you know, pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
I just want to touch one thing about you said about ceremonies, because I think it's very true. Like that's what ceremonies are. Why are they like that? I think that the reason that they're so grounding or like reshaping is because they're fundamentally, there's nothing like, if you look at the lineages and the teachings, right? It's super basic. And I don't, obviously I'm not like a super learned person. I only have like very basic knowledge of it. But the teachings are nature is God, and just follow nature and like be good to nature. That's like that's like the basic teachings, right? Of like, you know, be a good person, feel good about what you're doing. Like, and if you look at nature, right? Like nature is, there's no good and bad in nature. Nature just is, right? Like a fire from lightning or like a flood is not because nature is upset or angry. It just, that's just what it does. Like it just is. And if you look at even deeper, like a fire clears a field for there to be more growth. A flood floods the earth for there to be more growth. Okay, people are hurt, people are damaged, but like nature's just doing its mechanism. And like if you think about what that actually means on like a level of like drinking a plant or ingesting a plant or smoking a plant or whatever the machination of ingesting the plant, you're basically saying like give me your most basic thing in nature that I can understand, like my consciousness can understand, right? And maybe that's through like, wachuma of like, feeling the love, or maybe it's through like kambo of like, resetting your, your gut and your whole like system. Maybe it's through hape that you're like resetting your sinuses, and it's like that like that tool, that hammer, right, that you were saying before, of like, here's the baseline of what like things are, like nature. Yeah, you're loved. Yeah, you're clean. Yeah, your pathways are flowing. Like that is something that reminds us and brings us back to like our true selves, right? And kind of instills in us the kind of remember, or the memory of like some other dimension where we came from, where our souls come from. And that brings me to my next part, what I wanted to ask you of like, and you also touched it as well, of like soul growth, like there must be a reason that we're coming from another dimension or another reality and coming and put in this like 3D world, right? There must be a reason. Like I believe that the reason is to like grow your soul. Like my soul is tainted. My soul has problems from whatever reasons, past lives, lineages, ancestry, even maybe something like less crazy, just like the general sickness of humanity, right? Like we're going through right now. So, I don't know how it works. I don't know how reincarnation works or the afterlife. I don't know. But I do know that there is something that is like from before, and there is something after, and there is like a reason that I'm here that's outside of me, like making money and having a family and, whatever, building whatever, land and something. There is something that like my soul needs to go through to become better.
Yeah, you get the soul contract.
The soul
right?
contract. Exactly.
Before you go into this place, I heard some people talk about it as a contract or a soul contract. That is like, I don't know, it's something that you get before you get here. This is like your mission, and you come here with amnesia because that makes it more interesting and fun, I guess.
Totally.
And this is like an area where I definitely enjoy Bashar's, like just the way he talks about it. Not that I have to believe his way or his words.
Right.
He just put it very eloquently, I believe, or I think. I'm definitely signed up for a soul contract, that there is the higher me, and then above that there's like a higher bigger
Us. Yeah.
collective, bigger us. Yeah, that's all connected. What was I gonna get to? I was gonna get to the higher us. That we're all connected. Yeah, that we do have this connection, and I definitely feel like that becomes more apparent when you're doing ceremonial work.
No doubt. 100%.
No doubt.
Yeah, because the sense of self dissolves. And once the sense of self dissolves, what are you left with? You're left with everybody, nothing, light. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the peeling of the onion. I feel that's how many trips feel like. You're like looking at yourself, you're just taking each layer off, and that's like, this thing, I could heal that thing. Oh, let's take that off, and then you keep going. Every time you sit, there's like a new onion.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new layers that you have to unpeel. That's so funny. It's so interesting. It's like it's also like so different between like the Western and like Eastern or whatever alternative way of thinking of like in the Western, it's like, yeah, you go to therapy and now you're a new person, and it's like, okay, but I'm like going through life and being traumatized as I'm going through life. Like things are happening as I'm going through, like, it's like you have to constantly do it, the work, I feel like that.
I liked your description as well of nature. That's the basics, the wonders of nature. which is also
Yeah.
where, Taoism and the art name that I have. I mean, for me, I might be botching it, but the basics of Taoism basically is that the wonder is not in God, but it's just in this ever-going machine that we are in. I'm calling it a machine, obviously, but it's like a biological
System.
machine that just
Yeah.
keeps system that keeps on running,
Mm.
and that it exists is the magic in itself.
Mm. Mm. It's so
And that's the
comforting
basics of
too.
it.
It's so comforting. Like, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, that's it. I don't have to think about anything else. Like, the fact that my body is doing all the things that it's doing on like a microscopic level, and that the sun is heating up, like, you know what I mean? It's like almost like you don't have to think about if there's a God or if there's an afterlife or if there's a thing. It's like the fact that the system's going is a miracle.
Exactly. What you got to focus on is your soul contract. It's all good. So everything is gonna work. Just keep on your own shit.
Yeah.
Keep minding your
Wow.
business.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah,
I
that's what I
love that.
wanted to say. But like the stuff that Bashar is talking about reincarnation is like, or what I liked about it is like it's not necessarily that you have to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
You
get to
choose.
choose once you're
Yeah.
back on the other side. It's like, do you want? Did you feel that you missed something? You didn't do your purpose. Even if you didn't, that's fine. You could stay there and go on a different experience, or you could just redo everything, like go back to this life.
I like that as well.
Yes,
I
it's very open ended.
It's very open ended. I feel like that's the good way to look at things. Like, death is not the end; it's the beginning, right? Um,
Yeah,
it's hard to
transformation.
it's hard to accept that, But I feel like I don't know. Again, I think it's impossible for us to know what the machination is, but I feel like it doesn't matter as long as you think about death as a beginning or as another stepping stone in your life, then you're never gonna really fear it, right? Or maybe you'll fear it on like a healthy level, but not like in the way of like dreading it. And then also, I think that that kind of translates to the death of people that you love, right? Like, you got to be sad about it, and you got to be like, it's got to hurt, right? But you have to also remember that like they're not hurt or sad. They're like
Mm.
in a much more better, beautiful place. They're with the light, Um, and it's easy to say, right? Like, thank God, like most people close to me are still alive. Like, I lost my grandmother semi recently, maybe like a few years ago. That was very powerful and intense for me because I loved her so much. And like, I can't imagine, God forbid, like losing a child or my wife or something like that. But like, I want to believe that after the sadness and pain, I'll be happy, and I'll be like accepting, because I feel like that's the reality, right? It's not like an end,
Mm.
it's a beginning. And like the pain and hurt is very human and very 3D, and like once my pain and hurt is expressed, then
Mm.
it's remiss for me not to like move on and be like accepting of the fact that they're in a better place. And like, again, like, I don't, please universe, don't test me on this one. Like,
Please.
please let everything be good. But I
Yeah.
I want to believe that.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I don't think it's like it doesn't take away the grieving part of loss, and it doesn't take away the happiness for birth, because, in a sense, you should be sad when somebody's born, and you should be happy when somebody dies.
Wow, that's true. That's trippy as fuck. Yeah.
Because, it's like life could be a curse.
Hmm.
Well, we
Could
don't
be.
know it. Maybe it's paradise on the other side, or maybe this is the paradise,
It
potential
is the paradise.
paradise,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we're
yeah,
just
yeah.
fucking it up big
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, maybe we shouldn't say we, right? Like, we're trying to make the world better.
Right,
Like, we're trying to
right.
do whatever we can to make our lives, the people's around our lives, good. especially us as artists, like that's like kind of a very like pillar, you know, of like you know, creating art. Like none of us are getting rich and millionaires off of our art. Like the only money that we're getting or whatever is like that people can enjoy it and feel good or be inspired by it.
Yet we're not making millions yet.
Yeah. Please, universe, please.
Any moment, any moment.
Any moment, yeah. Okay, to wrap things up here, and I know this is gonna be your favorite part, but uh, DMT, I'm dynamite. DMT.
Empty.
Please tell us about your DMT experiences, or not necessarily about them, but like, you know, what does it mean to you? And you know, because I know a lot of your art is inspired by those realms, and you know, you, at least when we spoke about it last, you partook a lot in that molecule. So yeah, please tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's difficult because I feel like I'm either making a map or trying to visualize a place that we can all go to, we can all experience it. Kind of mapping that realm is what I feel like it's about. The experiences themselves, I feel, is like usually like deeply personal, almost like sometimes talking about the experience itself kind of can kind of take the magic away.
Totally.
Sort of. So I kind of don't want to like spoil too much of the plot, you know. You know, you should, for the ones who feel ready, you should go experience it also. But I mean, it's, yeah, what do I, it's like, how do I describe love? Or, you know, it's like, is this essential part? I feel it's essential, really. Like, it's like, if I would have gone a life without it, it would be like a life without sex, or life without eating like a delicious dinner or something like that.
Like a
It's an
moment of
experience
like,
to be had. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. That moment that you're like, I wouldn't say God-given right, but something in that direction. It's,
Yeah.
and it comes like we humans, I have huge mad respect for like the traditional ways of doing it. But I also have an aspect of it, of me, that feels like these things are not tied to the lineages or to the traditions, or they're tied to like themselves. They're
Yeah.
just here,
Human
and we have,
consciousness.
you know, done. Yeah, exactly. The ultimate democratized, you know, tool, because it's here for everybody.
Wow.
It's just out there. You can go out there into the field and pick it if you.
Right. Yeah. Or dream at night, right? Like, or, you
Yeah.
know, we don't understand it enough, really. But it's definitely inside of us and happening a lot.
Also, yeah. Also, super interesting is the, you know, the lucid dreaming. Like, to compare it to journeys where you actually taken something that will initiate you into it, but with the lucid dreaming, you can initiate it yourself into different
Totally.
realms and worlds, and build
Totally.
your own worlds and
Yeah.
realms.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
mean,
practiced a lot of lucid
there's
dreaming.
like really, so,
No, you go. You
sorry.
go. Please. No, please. You go.
Yeah, no, like I have so many like things that you want to say about it, like the magical vistas, you know, that's beyond our mind that we can't and maybe shouldn't see all the time every day. You know, when we're trying to fix a, I don't know, fix a car, you don't want to see like the car explaining to you like quantum physics.
That's funny.
I think that's how that would work out. I gotta say, you know, but then also like the opposite of that, you know, talking about lineages and traditions, I do feel that that's my preferred way of doing it. Also, after like doing it in so many different ways, like sitting down with knowledgeable people and like do find people that you trust, and, you know, follow that gut feeling, so you actually end up in a good ceremonial setting. Um, but when you find that, I think that's like, it can really blow your mind. You can really start. Yeah, it feels like you're working on yourself. It feels like you're working on the world. It feels like you're seeing, yeah. There's so many aspects to the magic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is magic for sure. Man, I haven't smoked DMT in such a long time. Although in Modem actually this year, symmetric vision got me to take a hit, but I took such a small hit. I'm such a pussy when it comes to psychedelics. I'm like, I don't know if I'm old or whatever, but I'm just like I can't. I'm scared, of taking like high doses of anything because I'm just like I know that's gonna happen to me, and I'm not like in a place right now. But sometimes I wish I could
Yeah,
just
for
like
me, it's
find the time to really like blast off into the space.
yeah, no. Festivals nowadays, especially the times that I've been to this year at Modem, I didn't do it, but before that, it was like I almost prefer DMT in small doses. So it's almost like a microdose of DMT.
Yeah,
It kind of gives you the energy and
yeah,
the little freakiness of it, but it doesn't
yeah,
go like overboard
yeah.
all the way.
Unless until you do, and then you
Yeah, then you're
and
dead.
then you're dead.
Good luck.
That's funny.
Go
Yeah,
sailing.
yeah. See you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like 1,000
Or
years.
eons, 5 eons.
Eons. Oh man.
So I think like in
Um,
the ayahuasca is more like for me it's a little more smooth. I think that's at least at the moment is the preferred way of going. Smoking it is a bit too violent almost.
hmm, hmm.
And so it gives you the time to integrate it, to like bring it with you also, to not just fire off.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of other alkaloids and other pieces of plants and medicines that are involved in ayahuasca that aren't just the DMT. It's like the difference of like
Mm,
synthetic mescaline versus like San Pedro, right? Like, yeah, I mean,
right.
I very much like synthetic mescaline because it's easy and it's accessible and it kind of takes you there. But there's like a lot of things that are happening inside of the San Pedro that aren't just the mescaline molecule, or
Mhm.
um, what is it? Not 5-MeO DMT. I can't remember the molecule, but it's like mescaline is mescaline. That's a molecule. Yeah,
Yeah. It is. It is.
yeah.
Oh, that could be one of the favorites also. It's a fun one.
Oh, definitely my go-to. Like, it was also my first like LSD was the first, but like LSD is like LSD. It's fun.
Mm.
You're gonna like break the glass, but you're not necessarily gonna like build up a whole house with LSD, right? You're gonna break through the veil and you're gonna peek through the
Mm.
fucking curtain forever. You're gonna like
Mm.
solidify God and like be like, yeah, there's a God for sure, but it's gonna be hard to build like a whole thing with LSD. And like with mescaline was like my first experience was just like whoosh, like seeing everything from outside of my body while my body's still doing everything for like hours, and like just like the just like the different dimension of it was just like as like a young person was just like so spiritual without even understanding that it's spiritual. It was just like
Mm.
so um like perspective shifting. You know what I mean? On like a very not rudimentary, on a very visceral level of like
Right.
I'm floating above my body and seeing everything like from outside of myself while I'm understanding what I'm doing and doing everything. It was just like so
Mm.
like crazy. Cause like when you're tripping on acid, it's like you have out of body experiences for sure, but it's usually like kind of you're not really moving, or it's like super disorienting and weird. And like DMT is the same thing. Like you're just like out of your body, but your body's like goodbye. You're not doing anything with your body. But with mescaline, I've felt a few times like I'm totally out of my body, but my body is so like laser focused on what's going on.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
very like dichotomy. Like here's both sides of the coin at once.
Right.
For
Yeah.
me at least.
Yeah, definitely. Ah, this is the funny thing is I don't think I've ever had an out of body experience where I can see my own body. It's always been on the other side more.
On the other
Like
side. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
body is still on this side of the reality or this side of the universe,
Totally.
and the mind is
Somewhere else.
in the multiverse or
Yeah. Yeah, this was like the first time my friend like just cooked up San Pedro, and we made like a psytrance party, and like I even was VJing actually, and I just drank a little bit, and like all of a sudden like my MIDI becomes like water, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm gonna take a step aside. It was like a small party we made ourselves. I wasn't really VJing, and then all of a sudden like just like whoosh, like I'm just like walking around the party talking to people and whatever, but I'm like seeing everything from like above. It was so I don't think it's happened many times again. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe sometimes in ceremonies I'll feel like the presence of God, and like I kind of see the ceremony above, but not it wasn't the same as this. It was like very, yeah, I feel like it was kind of like I was young and I was like experiencing this for the first time, so like it was kind of like a lot of conflation, or a lot of like not conflation, inflation of like what's going on, because you're just so innocent and young and kind of excited by this kind of like new thing that your mind starts to tell stories about what it's going through, I think it was something along those lines. Yeah.
Well, that would be a trip. Reality is just a story that we're telling ourselves that is happening.
I mean, probably.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I've like had the only way I can describe it is like a near-death experience.
Mm.
More like when I was coming back from the out of body, and I, not seeing my body from outside, but more like my light leaving the body.
Wow. Wow.
When everything goes dark, and I'm just hanging on the last sort of thread. And then I'm kind of deciding that I'm gonna go back because I'm like as close as I can experience death. So it's like time to turn around and turn back. So I'm kind of like, and it feels like I'm sinking back into the body, and like nothing is working yet. It's like it actually shut down, like
Yeah.
there's no feeling of the arms, and everything's sort of coming back slowly. You're like feeling the body, like almost feeling, it feels like the blood is like going back out. Which was like this was like a only happened once. And it was with pretty high dose of mushrooms.
Oh wow. Yeah. I can't even.
Yeah,
Mushrooms is the
I don't know
one
if
I can't.
it's
Like over a gram, I'm just mush, and I am not having a good time. Even sometimes a gram will do it to me. I mushrooms, I like very, very microdose. I can't. I probably one day should like sit down with 5 grams and just be like, whatever happens, happens. But I'm not there yet. One day.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I think because I didn't have a weigh back in the day, so I measured it by tablespoons, more or less. Learning it like that was like a 2.5, like pretty big tablespoons.
I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah, no, and then you never know. Like, was it a near-death experience? That's my experience of it. That's how I would explain a near-death experience to someone. But was it that? I don't know.
Well, like that's the thing, right? Like, was I out of my body? Was I not? Like, in theory, it wasn't a near-death experience because you can't overdose on mushrooms, right? Like, it's not even a thing, right? Like,
yeah, no,
like,
I don't think it was like, I don't think it was because
no,
of the
but
mushrooms, but it was me choosing to experience death.
That's what I'm saying.
Can you choose death?
Like, the machination of your mind to be able to tell this story of what you're going through is so powerful. But it's also that's the lesson of like, we can create reality. We can, manifest things into reality in such a powerful and profound way. I think that's kind of like a big lesson of psychedelics outside of ceremony and healing and growth, is like just the ability to create ideas and stories that are our experience, right? Not just like like a hallucination, or like was I dying, was I not dying? No, I was dying because that's what I'm experiencing now and what my brain is deciding to manifest into this moment. You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, well, what else can I do with that information?
Exactly. Yeah, I think when we realize what we can do with the manifestation is like also one of those words that keeps being thrown around a lot. But when we realize what we can actually do with it, with the idea of that, it'll hit us pretty hard, I think.
Totally. Wow. Mikael, so nice talking to you. I love you so much. You're such a great guy. Super nice, super honored to get to see your experience and to get to see how you do things. Is there anything else you want to say before we end this?
Well, I have the microphone to. I'm just grateful, man. Thank you, and thanks to all the VJs and artists, and everybody at Modem, and to the future festivals that I'll be attending and working at. It's such a fun ride to be brought along for. So I'm just grateful to you, all of you, and it's fun to share. Cool to be on the visual cast. A lot of fun. I was seriously I was skipping dinner because I was so nervous, talking for 3 hours straight. As a Finnish person, that makes me nervous. We don't talk a lot.
Well, we did it, and it was great. Thank you so much.
Had a lot of fun.
Wow, what an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Mantis Smash for the intro and outro music. Thank you to Sophie Holder for the amazing internship helping us with all the episodes. And thank you to the guest for coming on and spending time with us. See you next week.